desk again, which I didn't do. I had nothing to do with it.
Don't do that on the air. Don't be that guy.
So it's not his fault. It just happened this morning. But I was in here with a great one, and we talked a bunch. And so I'm way behind there. Stream's up, by the way. Stream's up. I didn't get that done, so that's good news.
I'm not too old to find you, son.
Whatever you say, Coach. We got a lot to get to today, man. Somebody pointed out how good of a sports weekend this is. I mean, a genuinely good sports weekend. The college football slate is incredible. The Ryder Cup is this weekend.
That's the golf, right?
That is the golf, right? That is correct. Team USA taking on Team Europe up at Bethpage Black.
Is that like on the air when football's on?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it will absolutely have a spot on the Rob Brown Show itinerary of television.
I mean, I would just think that maybe they could like schedule that in a place where there's no football, so they would get more eyes on the product. That's all. It just seems like a bad time of the year to do it.
Anybody who is in on the Ryder Cup is in on the Ryder Cup. Anybody who goes, I'd be in on the Ryder Cup if it wasn't during football, isn't really in on the Ryder Cup. That's like, it's fine. It's great. It's fall. It's after the PGA season. You got to let that finish because you can't put it in the middle of the season and throw these guys up. It's a different style of golf.
Be like the NBA's mid-season tournament. You could do that.
Yeah, but that's played in season and it's still playing basketball with your basketball team.
That's what I'm saying.
This is not the same. You
could put that in the middle of golf season and it would be the same thing.
No, it's not. No, it's not the same thing at all because the format of this golf tournament is not just go out there and play golf. There are guys who will play like a lot of rounds. There are guys who won't play at all. There is match play. There's group play. There's scratch play.
It's pretty cool, actually.
It's great.
Yeah, but I would think that you would put it in a place where more people would hear it. That's all, or watch it rather.
I don't know that there is that place. Is the point? And even if there was, like I understand what you are saying in terms of like being able to get ratings and all that. But at the end of the day, and this is going to be such a. No, it's not even a nose in the air thing. The reality is if you're in on golf and you're going to watch it, you're going to watch it. If you're not in on golf, you're not going to watch this anyway.
So you're making it sound like, well, we don't need you. We only need the people who
are. No, not at all.
No, you said that it may sound that way.
Yes, the guy who has for 5 years now constantly been pitching ideas to golf about how to get more eyes on the TV.
I didn't say that. You said it. You said it may sound a certain way, and I was clarifying that, yes, you're right. It does sound that way. That's all.
The reality of this tournament, as much as it is one of my favorite events of the year, and I will be 1,000% locked in to every shot that is hit this weekend, as much as it is one of my favorite events. If you want competition, in golf, this is the event to watch. It's going to be more competitive. You look at the
it's in the United States this time. Right?
It is in the United States.
So it won't be as good. Because when it's in Europe, there's jeering and stuff.
I think you will be shocked by how good it is this year because this is the first time in a while where there is some level of optimism about the Americans. It's still still underdogs in this, but there still is some level of optimism for what the Americans can do this weekend in the Ryder Cup. And we'll talk about that because there was a very interesting thing that happened yesterday in the world of golf that I actually planned on talking about later on today. The discussion circling around Bryson DeChambeau, because there was a discussion. Actually, I lied to you. The Americans actually now favored to win the Ryder Cup. We'll come to that a little bit later on. But there's a dude that works for the Golf Channel that has been, for the past couple of years, he has been kind of on a bit of a vendetta against Bryson DeChambeau. And I don't really have a problem with it because while Bryson DeChambeau on one hand has like been building up this social media influencer reputation with his YouTube channel, which has like millions of subscribers and viewers to it now. And he's been doing some really fun stuff. He did this competition not too long ago where he was inviting people like viewers to his house to try to get a hole in one on a green that he had built in his backyard, but you had to shoot the ball over his house, landed on the green, and get a hole in one. And he gave away a Lamborghini or something. He's been doing very interesting stuff on his YouTube channel. And he's kind of built this golf influencer personality around him. But there is also a lot of rumors out there that Bryson DeChambeau is still kind of a petulant child away from this character that he's created. And that's effectively what the claim is that Bryson DeChambeau has kind of created this character to get away from who he is as a guy, which is just kind of this petulant man-child to some degree. And so there's a guy on the Golf Channel that has had this vendetta against Bryson DeChambeau for some time. And earlier this week, he was like, this guy is a nightmare for the Ryder Cup team. He's a nightmare because he's a locker room cancer, and he's going to make it about him. And while he presents this forward face to you guys, that's not who he is. Well, yesterday, of course, obviously, the folks in the media all immediately went to the Ryder Cup team, the Ryder Cup guys, and were like, hey, talk to us about Bryson DeChambeau. And they all rushed to his defense. They're like, no, he's a great dude. He's a lot of them, I've partnered with him before. He's done nothing but good work, yada, yada, yada. And it's this interesting conversation the day before the opening ceremony. The opening ceremony is actually happening tomorrow because of inclement weather expected on Thursday when it was supposed to take place. So the opening ceremony tomorrow, will start the golf on Friday. But there's this kind of discussion that's cropped up about locker room chemistry and all that at a point in time where, again, this is a year that the Americans have some optimism. So coming up later on in the show.
Do they actually have a locker room?
Yeah. Most country clubs like this have a locker room.
Okay.
And then they are utilized by the guys on tour.
It's more of a dressing room, though, than a locker room.
I mean, dressing room is just it's the fancy snooty way of saying locker room. It's still lockers, and it's still a room. Ergo, it is still a locker room. Dressing rooms is just a fancier way of saying it.
I've seen one, I think it's at Thornblade. Maybe it was Thornblade. BMW was there one year when I was there, and I was able to go in and look around. And it had like a barber's chair and stuff in there. That's
when you start getting to the into the upper end, like the upper echelon of golf courses, dude, like some of these dressing rooms, you're like, I just live here now. I'll just stay here. I've been in one before in Florida.
It's more of a club than it is a.
Oh, for sure.
When I say club, I don't mean, chicken wings and stuff.
These are not the type of golf courses that you can just call and get a tee time. Like, you got to know it. You either have to be a member or know a guy. I was in one down in just outside of Tampa with a buddy of mine whose dad is a member a very long time ago. And their dressing room, like, it has a bar in it. I'm going to say bar. I mean, there's a bartender. All he does is tend the bar in the dressing room. Like, there's just one guy with a fully stocked bar who only is in the locker room. You can just be in there getting you ready for your round and walk over. It's open bar. You just get whatever you want whenever you want to get it. Leave a tip, move on. Like, it had a sauna in it. Get done with your round, pop into the sauna for just a minute. Yeah, it's spectacular.
Yeah, hang out with John Daly in the sauna. I don't know.
Telling me you want to hang out with John Daly? I want to hang out with John Daly.
He's an excellent actor.
Happy Gilmore 2 was amazing. All right, we got to get quite a bit in today. Coming up later on in the show, because we didn't get to it yesterday because I am bad at this job, we've got to do this week's forgot my button. We've got to do this week's
that is not real
awards. So we're coming to those later.
You were working on audio over there. I couldn't take a chance of.
That's fair. It's fair. We've got your TMFINR awards coming up later on in this radio program. We're going to talk about that. I've got to give you what I think at this point might be the one stat, maybe one number that I think I most credit for the doom of this 2025 football season for the Clemson Tigers. There is something that was pointed out to me yesterday on social media, and I've called it out a number of times. In fact, yesterday when we were having our conversation about Dabo's reaction during his radio show, and I said, I don't think this is the right way to handle it. Zoe asked me the question, and he said, well, then, like, what would you say to make it feel as if you weren't answering a question instead of what Dabo did say? And off the top of my head, I came up with 6 things that I would address. One of the things that I would address is, why is this offensive line as bad as it appears to be? Well, yesterday, a number about this offensive line got put in front of my face, and I went, there it is. There it is. There's your number. There's your reason. There's your doom. Now, there's a lot more to it that still has to be addressed, and this is true about South Carolina as well. So, The conversation that I would like to have today about your two football teams, Clemson fans and South Carolina fans. At the beginning of every season, about a week or two out from the start of the season, there is an annual conversation that we have. And that annual conversation that we have is I ask you as fans to set a realistic ceiling and floor for your football team. Now, this year coming into the season, the ceiling for the Clemson Tigers was 12-0, 13-0, undefeated ACC champion, win a bunch of playoff games, go to the Nat. That's fair. Or at least it felt fair at the time. I asked the same for the South Carolina Gamecocks, and most of you Gamecocks fans said the ceiling is 10-2, the floor is 8-4. Somewhere in the middle is what I thought the ceiling was, which is 9-3. And punch your way into either maybe participating for an ACC or an SEC title game, but more realistically, according to you guys, grab yourself with a 10-2 or a 9-3 record. Grab yourself the 11 or the 12 seed in the playoffs. Well, at this point, I am convinced, and I'm assuming most of you are as well, neither one of those two things are happening. Even Dabo said on his show, we're not winning the national championship this year, so we need to reevaluate. We need to reestablish where we are, what we are, and what our expectations are for the remainder of this season.
Have they been mathematically eliminated?
Nobody. You can't be mathematically eliminated in college football because it's obviously very subjective. Which is why there is another conversation we'll have later on. The reason why
I'm asking that, because there was no chance for them to make it into the ACC championship last year with the way that season went, and they did. And then they ended up in the playoffs.
I am going to respectfully disagree. There was we'll need some help, and they got it in the form of Georgia Tech.
So there's no chance that, we're early enough in the season that if they won the rest of their games and some other ACC teams were to lose games to each other, and there's no chance that they could get back into it. So there's 0% of hope for all the Clemson fans out there.
0, no, but it's like a Powerball odds ticket at this point.
So there's a chance.
Sure, but at the same time, I don't go around and blow all my money because I go, hey, there's a chance I win the Powerball. No,
allegedly you don't do that.
No, I definitely don't. Even if I did, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference.
That's what I'm saying.
No, you have a Powerball's shot, and keep in mind, you would need Georgia Tech now to lose 3 conference games at this point because they have a tiebreaker over you. So
probably not going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. This early on the season. That's all I'm saying.
Again, not out of the realm of possibility, but then again, neither is me walking outside and finding a gold bar fell out of a plane and landed next to my car, and I'm rich now.
Well, if it fell out of a plane and landed next to your car,
you don't have to think about the actual ramifications of the hypothetical here.
Okay.
You get
I'm
what
just
I'm saying.
wondering how much of how deep into the earth it would go, and if you would actually be able to get it out of there, and if it will remain intact because it's a gold bar and gold is malleable, and if it, there's just a lot of things in there.
Listen, the point is, I could walk outside and somebody could hand me a check for $1 million and say, you did a great job, good job, go retire. But that I'm not going to bank. I'm not going to plan my life on that. Here's the other part.
You're right, because you would say, well, that's not enough.
Yeah, you know me. Here's the other part of that. There's the other part of this that has to be discussed as well, which is you've still got a very interesting ACC slate left out ahead of you at this point, right? You've still got Florida State out there waiting for you. That team looks for real. SMU is clearly not the same team that they were last year. But that's still not a bad team.
Clemson did not get their butt beat in their losses. They're close to...
Incorrect.
Yeah, I think
incorrect. So you are telling me right now that Georgia Tech didn't whip the absolute dog out of Clemson?
What was the final score?
No. Final score doesn't indicate what the game went like. It's not final score indicates.
It does, though. You can get your butt whipped the entire game and then run a kickback for a touchdown and win the game.
Until you watch the game. Did they do that? Was Clemson ever? I asked you the next day, was there ever a point Clemson was in this game? And you said no. That's an ass whipping. You said no.
I can't remember. So if you say
Oh, I can.
I'm going to go.
Oh,
with
I
it.
can.
I
I said on
gotta
Monday.
admit, I don't remember.
There was
that was
zero
like that was a
points.
month ago.
No,
dude.
I'm talking about the Syracuse game
Oh, okay.
against Syracuse.
Well, you just said Georgia Tech.
That
and
one
then you
too.
Then you jumped into okay.
There was maybe 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh
where
no,
you're
Syracuse, that was bad.
That was
really
an ass
bad.
beating.
It was
Like, there's
pretty
no other way
bad.
around that. So no, like they were right there. No, you weren't. Syracuse dominated you literally from the get. They scored on their opening drive. They turned around. They got an onside kick. They drove down and got another field goal. You were up 10, or they were up 10 before you touched the ball.
Trying to be positive for our Clemson friends out there, trying to give them some hope because that's what I'm about. I'm never anything negative. I'm always about hope, and I'm trying to give it to them. And you're just poo-pooing everything.
I'm a realist. You got your ass beat by Syracuse this weekend. As far as I'm concerned, like, Georgia Tech had you better than a 24-21 final score indicates. You still got
Admittedly, I did send you a text, but you didn't read it.
No, I did. I just wasn't going to respond to it in that moment. You got Florida State out ahead of you still.
Like you ever have.
You're at Louisville later on in the year. That's a team that can put up 70 points on just about anybody. You've still got, even if I give you North Carolina and Boston College, again, like Duke isn't Duke. I said there was a double-ended spectrum here for Duke. Either on one hand, Mike Elko was the guy, Manny Diaz ain't, they're going to stink, or Manny Diaz is the guy and they're not going to stink. They're 2-2, but they did just hang 45 on NC State. That Duke game is not a for granted.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar tomorrow.
Yeah, but the problem is
sun.
Tomorrow for the expectations you had this year, tomorrow's 2026. Tomorrow is a year away. And never once did you hear Little Orphan Annie singing, I love you tomorrow, you're only a year away. That would be a much more disappointing play.
That was in the sequel.
I didn't know there was a sequel. Here's the point, people. Here's what I would like to do today on the radio program. Instead of doing it like we do at the beginning of the year, where we say set your realistic ceilings and expectations for this year, let's do it for the rest of the year. And I want you to be realistic. Don't pick up the phone if you're a Clemson fan and go, Rob, realistically, we go undefeated the rest of the year. Because not what I've seen so far. Realistic ceiling and floor for Clemson. Realistic ceiling and floor the rest of the ride for South Carolina. We'll address those. We'll take a look at what is left out ahead. We'll talk about the one big number that I think indicates a massive problem for these two football teams. We got to get some baseball in here. The Yankees have clinched. The Mariners have clinched. We'll set your bracket
that
up.
belt is sweet.
Yeah, WWE's made all those for most of the teams who have won titles.
I know, but for some reason that one looks really
It's
cool.
because it's white. White belts are dope. All right, we'll take a break. We're back after this. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. I mean, the floor is 2-10 because outside of Furman, there's not a team that can't lose to. You're not wrong. All right, be right back, guys. I'll come right back. We'll address the chat. Leave it in there. Setting a realistic ceiling and floor moving forward for both Clemson and South Carolina. Joey B, the first one to chime in. He said Clemson's new ceiling is 9-3 based on the fact that they still have more talent than anyone else on their schedule. Their floor is 2-10 because outside of Furman, there's not a team they can't lose to at this point. Yeah, I mean, that's a big window, Joey B, between they can win every game except one or they can lose every game except one the rest of the ride. I would agree with the sentiment, but here is the problem that I'm having.
So that's, I mean, if you were new to this show and you're listening, the first thing you would think is, okay, that's a coaching problem.
That's exactly what I was about to say. This year feels like the problem, and I would make the argument this may be true with South Carolina as well. I think the issue that you have right now in this spot is that when you look at it from the perspective of talent, right? Like I had this take on Monday when we were talking about the loss to Syracuse on Monday, which was, of course, was 2 days ago. I had this thought about this team on Monday. I wasn't banging the drum as a lot of other folks were on Monday about, oh, well, this is a reflection of Dabo not using the portal. This is a reflection on Dabo not, participating in, enhancing, promoting, whatever, NIL. I didn't go there. And I didn't go there for one reason. I didn't go there for the reason that the roster is better for Clemson than it was Syracuse. I would make the argument that while it is maybe the best roster they've ever had, and while Haynes King is absolutely a dog, the roster for Clemson is obviously still better than Georgia Tech's. Those two games were a team full of better players losing to a team that has less talent on their roster, and it happened twice. The LSU game, while I don't believe it necessarily to be true, I could make the argument at least that LSU is either on par with or perhaps even slightly better than Clemson. I don't think it is. I would say it's on par with. But the point is, that's a game you could look and go, LSU was just a better football team. But Georgia Tech is not a better on paper football team. Syracuse is not on paper a better football team. You know what both of those teams were? More well coached. I also gave on Monday what I believe to be the 4 pillars of being a successful college football coach in 2025. Acquisition, retaining, development, and execution in game. This is why I've been banging the drum that from this point forward, I'm in on coaches who are football dudes. Like guys who get the game, guys who understand the X's and the O's of the game. And I'm not talking from a standpoint of just understanding them, but I'm talking from a standpoint of knowing them, being able to adjust in game and on the fly to what is happening, and being able to communicate that to the players in a way that the players see, hear, embrace, and take to heart, right? Like it is one thing if you're the smartest dude in the room. If you are trying to tell everybody else in the room what it is that needs to be done for something to be successful, if you can't get them to listen to you, believe you, and then follow you to that victory, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. And just like with a lot of other things in life, there are a lot of people who have no bleeping idea what needs to be done to be successful, but they're so charismatic that people follow them anyway. That's not a football dude. I need a dude who gets X's and O's and is also capable, because they are a football dude and football players connect with football dudes. This is the Miami Dolphins problem we talked about, right? Like it was one thing when Mike McDaniel walked into the office and won over the Dolphins front office, and they told the locker room, like, y'all follow this dude. He's a dude. And he showed up, and they had the number 2 offense in football, and everything was hunky-dory down there in Miami, Florida. And then the wheels came off for just a minute, and you saw how fast that locker room completely abandoned Mike McDaniel. And now the dude went from like, oh, that's the funny little dork with the vape pen on the sideline to that guy looks like he needs somebody to ask him if he's okay, right? It's kind of that.
To win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game.
Yeah, like it just doesn't sound great. And I think that's because the locker room abandoned him, because while he's a brilliant football mind, he's not a football dude. And you know exactly what the hell I mean when I say a football dude, and he's not one. So with that being said, I am looking at this Clemson football team, a team that 2 of your 3 losses are to a team that on paper just aren't as good as you are. And that does lead me to believe I'm chalking this right up to one of 2 things. It is either A, pillar number 3, development. Are you making the players that are on your roster, once you get them there and once you convince them to stay there, are you making them better? And I think the answer for this is no. This is why I have pointed out a few times. The question that I like to ask is, what's better? From week 1 LSU to week 2 Troy. From week 2 Troy to week 3 Georgia Tech. From week 3 Georgia Tech to week 4 Syracuse. What's better? Because it ain't the quarterback. It's not the offensive line. The defensive line got beat by Georgia Tech so bad that Syracuse was inspired. I firmly believe that Georgia Tech whipped Clemson at the point of attack. Their offensive line won at the point of attack so much that the guys at Syracuse watching tape, I have zero doubt, went, we can do that. Like that's within our realm of possibility. We can do that. So then Syracuse comes out and lays the wood down on Clemson at the line of scrimmage. Like, of course, that's going to be the result. Football dude, Brent Key, football dude, Fran Brown. I talked to both of them at ACC Media Days. Both of them just absolute football dudes. Well coached. The boys in the locker room are all in. They adapted on the fly to what was happening. And they've got the best rosters. Well, Georgia Tech's got the best roster they've ever had. I don't think Syracuse is anywhere close to it, but I won't be shocked if over the next 2 years they develop it, because wins like that over Clemson, that's how you do that. That is how you do that. So with all that being said, I think that we do chalk it up to coaching. And the second part of this conversation is, as I told you a few weeks ago, I feel like, although this has kind of always been a reality, I am shifting over even further to the paradigm of I'm just going to judge based on what's on tape. I'm just going to judge based on what you've shown me. I'm just going to judge based on what you have laid down as an example for me to judge. Not what I feel, not what might happen. I was on with Brad Evans last night, and we talked about this week's Illinois v. USC game. And he said, I think Illinois is a dog by 6.5. And Horvat was like, there's no way they don't bounce back, right? And I said, here's the thing, man. Like, what on tape about that game last week where Indiana shut them down? What on that tape from a football perspective? Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, defensive backs. What about that game did you look and say, okay, but at least they have this? I got nothing. I can only go by what's on tape and what have you done? As we're 4 games deep in this season, and there is yet to be a game where it has felt to me like this coaching staff's going to get it. There's been nothing so far that's made me look and go, okay, they lost that game, but they made this adjustment. They changed that. They tinkered with that. They moved this guy. They moved that guy. But the only movement you've had so far is you got Antonio Williams back. You plugged him back into wide receiver 1. But even then, Syracuse started trying to take him away in the second half, started changing defenses towards him, started putting him in double teams, whatever. They started creating issues for Antonio Williams to get loose or to prevent Antonio Williams from getting loose. And you just kept running the same plays at him when it clearly effectively removed that guy from being the productive guy you needed him to be. That's problematic. And there wasn't a response to it, why would I think that all of a sudden? Now, there is one bit of good news, and we talked about this earlier. You've got a bye week. I think this is a time now. Dabo's done his press conference and radio show. Garrett Riley's done his press conference. Everybody's talked. Cade Klubnik took some questions yesterday. I got some audio from him. We'll play later on in the show. Everybody's talked. They've all addressed the media. Now is the time that I would say, as the arbiter of how coaches should handle situations.
Don't you do that.
Now is the time where I think it is very appropriate for that team to shutter the buildings. Now it's time to drop the hurricane shades down. Now it's time to stock up on the milk and bread. Now it's time to lock yourself in the practice facility and have some real tough conversations. Player to player, coach to coach, player to coach, coach to player. Because you're at North Carolina. That's a bad and poorly coached football team. You are at Boston College the week after that. Back-to-back road trips, but against two of the worst teams in the ACC. These are get-right games, because then it's SMU, who is going to be fighting for their lives. It's Duke, who just hung 45 on NC State. It's Florida State coming to the crib, and you know they mad as hell about last year. And then it's at Louisville, who is going to want to hang 70 on you because they can. And if you get to the end of the year, and it is a bowl eligibility bowl between South Carolina and Clemson, you know, especially at their house, what they want to do. What on tape do I have to believe that the coaching is just going to suddenly kill it? I got nothing to lean on. Lock it down, dial in, go beat the hell out of North Carolina, get right. Texter said, Rob, is Clemson living in your head or what? Day 3 of the all Clemson Rob Brown show. Well, A, it hasn't been. B, you understand that I am going to talk about things when they are wrong, not when they are good. When they are good, there's nothing to fix. I'm not going to sit here and go, everything is awesome. We're going to talk about what's wrong and what's bad, because that's what needs to get worked on. That's what productive people do. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
I'm enjoying all the Clemson. I think we should do 4 straight hours about what's wrong with Clemson. Let's fix this thing.
Oh, I got at least an hour of South Carolina in there too.
We'll
got
see.
them.
We'll see.
All right, dude. Stay right there. We'll be right back. South Carolina now knows their 2026, 27, 28, and 29 Southeastern Conference home and away opponents moving forward. Your rivals, we told you yesterday, your annual rivals that you will take on moving forward. Now we know the regular schedule for the rest of the ride. For the South Carolina Gamecocks in 2026, you will play Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida. Those are your three annual rivals. Added to the schedule on your rotational basis in 2026, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. Those will be your three home games. Your three road games will be at Alabama, at Arkansas, at Oklahoma. Of your annual rivalry opponents in year number one of the 9-game slate, 2026, Georgia will come to Willie B, Kentucky will come to Willie B, and the University of Florida will be in Gainesville. And those will alternate through the 4 years, 26, 7, 8, and 2029 for the next 4 years. You got Mississippi State, Tennessee, A&M, at Alabama, at Arkansas, at Oklahoma next year. The year after that, you will play LSU, Mizzou, Texas, at Auburn, at Ole Miss, at Vanderbilt. In 2028, Alabama, Arkansas, Oklahoma, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, at Texas A&M. And in 2029, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Vandy come to Columbia. You will be at LSU, Missouri, and Texas. And obviously, you will, as we mentioned, rotate in and out of home and away with those other teams as they go on and off your schedule. The schedule was set up so that if you play 4 years at South Carolina, you will play every other Southeastern Conference institution at least once home and at least once away. You will play everybody, unlike years gone by when you might go 6 years before you see a Southeastern Conference opponent a second time. Now you won't go further than one, and you will both visit and receive a visit from each of those institutions. So the schedule next season, and I do think, and this is going to be next year, you hate to go ahead and say we're looking ahead to next year, but hey, here's your opponents. We might as well, even if it's just for a brief moment. Mississippi State might be the easiest game you have on the docket next year. Maybe Florida, depending on what happens with Billy Napier. If Billy Napier gets canned, then maybe it's over for Florida. Maybe it is hard reboot time. They tried not to do a hard reboot when Billy Napier showed up. They brought in a guy who had already had some success at a lower level. They were able to retain a good chunk of that roster. They did not want to have a massive amount of turnover at Florida, but I've got the sneaky suspicion that if Billy Napier is released at the end of the year, and based on what we're seeing so far right now, probably, then maybe Florida and Mississippi State, depending on what ends up happening with Florida. Roadies to Alabama, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Homers against Mississippi State, Tennessee, Texas A&M. And of your of your annual opponents, Georgia and Kentucky come to the crib. You are at Florida. The year after that, obviously, at Georgia, at Kentucky. And Florida will come back to Columbia, South Carolina. Look, it's maybe not the three. Georgia, I would have absolutely picked as an annual rivalry. As far as competitive balance goes, we talked about this. The Southeastern Conference wanted to do the best they could to protect historic rivalries across the Southeastern Conference, but also make sure that there was competitive balance to it, right? You didn't want to get saddled with 3 top-tier annual opponents if you are, not that. So I think they did a good job. You got a towards the bottom of the conference, Kentucky, a towards the middle of the conference, Florida, and a towards the top of the conference, Georgia. And obviously, because these opponents, the Southeastern Conference reserves the rights to change them 5 years from now, there is the chance that those change down the line in order to restore competitive balance should one or more of these teams find themselves either moving up or dropping down the SEC power rankings as we get closer to that date. But Your schedule is what it is, as a lot of coaches are willing to say. Not an easy one for the Gamecocks moving forward. This is part of the reason that I have leaned very heavily on the number one recruiting tool that South Carolina has, in my opinion. The number one recruiting tool that South Carolina has is creating a very unique culture. Because until you succeed at recruiting, and I'm not talking about what you've done the last couple of years, you have more NFL draft picks last year than in the history of the program. You've succeeded. You've gotten talent in. But until you can take, we got a bunch of 3 stars and a couple of 4 stars and turn that into, we got a bunch of 3 stars, a bunch of 4 stars, and a couple of 5 stars, until that becomes more of a regular occurrence for you, it is probably going to be a while before we are a regular competitor for the Southeastern Conference becomes your biggest recruiting tool. Your biggest recruiting tool in South Carolina. This is why last week, after the opening loss in the Southeastern Conference, I pointed out last week I don't want to use the word shocked, but I was a little bit surprised by how radio silent South Carolina went. And it wasn't because it wasn't the place to do it, right? Like, you're coming off a win, that's when you can break out, as Mark Stoops would say, the funny glasses and dancing around in the locker room. The reason I was surprised by the radio dark last week going into the Missouri game, and I got to say, like, I suspect we're going to hear more of the same this week. And here we are on Wednesday. You know, we heard and played a little bit of Shano's press conference from postgame. He did hit the podium again Monday, and I got a little bit of audio we're going to come to later on in the show from that. But I would point out that you're not really seeing a lot of the kind of unique tone of South Carolina that Shane Beamer has brought to this program. And I think that there is a reason for that. I don't love it, though. And I don't love it, though, because, as I have pointed out, having that unique voice, having that unique tone, that is part of what makes your program, regardless of football success on the gridiron, that's what makes it more compelling, interesting, dare I say, attractive to the next generation of players. South Carolina is going to have to do a couple of things. Number one, you're going to have to be very good with NIL. And number two, you are going to have to, as worked for Lenora Sellers, you are going to have to create an attitude, a culture, a locker room, an environment where players go, yo, this is pretty dope. Like, this is cool. I want to be part of something cool, and this is pretty cool. And the same place where parents, like Lenoris's dad said in that interview we talked about a few weeks ago, a place where parents go, my kid thinks it's cool, and I am very comfortable with him going there and playing there. So your voice, your development of a culture, as well as developing players, and that is something that, listen, if I'm South Carolina, and this is, I think, maybe the most disappointing thing about this season for me, if I'm South Carolina, one of my war cries right now is, look how many guys we sent to the league last year. We can, if you have NFL talent, we can develop you and get you where you want to go, to the professional level. And I would go so far as to say, as much as it is going to be labeled as little brother syndrome, one of my recruiting and sales tactics right now would be, they're not developing guys at Clemson like they used to, which I think is something that even a lot of Clemson fans would agree with right now. They're not developing guys over there the way that we are developing guys here. And that needs to become a big-time sales pitch. That is something that Shano and Clayton and Mike Shula should be heavily leaning on right now. Like, it needs to be player development time. You need to be able to say, I asked the question, the most important question I can ask any football team is this: what got better? What got better from week 1 to week 2? What got better from week 2 to week 3? What got better from 3 to 4? And the answer right now for Clemson is, in my opinion, nothing. Now, the problem is right now, if I ask the same question for South Carolina, what got better from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4? What would the answer be to that? I don't know that I have one there yet either. It's certainly not the run game. It's certainly not the offensive line. In fact, if anything, I would say right now, and this may be, scratch that, I do think that this is a result of the offensive play calling right now. Is it unfair to say that even Lenore Sellers looks like he's regressed a little bit? Like bad decisions with the football? We talked about that 1st and goal on the 1 scenario that turned into, what was it, 2nd and 23, 24? Second and goal from the 24. And that to me was a direct result of poor decision-making from Lenore Sellers. But I also think it was a result of a poor decision from Lenore Sellers that was made because of the fact that on 1st and goal from the 1, you called a drop back pass with Lenore Sellers as your quarterback. Even if you use him as a distraction and you hand the ball on some, off guard, whatever, to Attaway or face on or whoever you want to in that spot, you put it on Lenore and ask him to just do a pocket drop back pass. It made him look bad. You put him in a position where he might make a bad decision. If you know your quarterback is struggling with decision making, don't call plays that rely on his ability to make a great decision. Call plays to get him into a rhythm, to give him some confidence, to make him feel better about what he's doing, and then we can revisit all of that. But certainly don't do it on 1st and goal where you ask him to drop back in the pocket. Oh, by the way, with the least amount of available real estate you will have anywhere on a football field to do it.
Is there a chance that he audibled into that?
I don't think so. I mean, yes, there's a chance, and we'll never know if he did or not. But I can't imagine Lenore Sellers said, 1st and goal from the 1, I'm going to audible into me being Tom Brady. No, I think if he was going to audible in that moment, doesn't he audible into anything else?
Confidence sometimes will cause you to make decisions you shouldn't.
Either way, even if that's the case, that is still a bad decision. And you're set up in a spot where you've allowed him to do that. So at a point where one of these two teams would give themselves a big-time favor just by saying, we're the player development school in this state, neither one of them is doing that either. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we get your water cooler cheat sheet right off the rip. We're going to talk some NFL coming up later on the show. Ordinarily, Denton Day would join us. He's got to move to Friday because he's got a couple of obligations today. So we will keep talking college football towards the end of the show. We got your TMFI on our awards and more. Now, if there's one guy who is real, Lonzo with a sports flash.
Unlike birds, because they're not real. It's 10 straight wins for the Atlanta Braves after a 3-2 victory over the Nationals. Hurston Waldrop collected his 6th win. Atlanta's bats slowed down with just 6 hits, but 2 of those were home runs from Ronald Acuna Jr. and Michael Harris II. The final game of the 3-game series is today at 12:15. Second longest tenured coach in college football is out as Oklahoma State fired head coach Mike Gundy yesterday after a 1-2 start to the season. Gundy, who is a man, was in his 21st season leading the Cowboys. Only Kirk Ferentz, in charge of the Iowa Hawkeyes since 1999, has been in a locker room longer. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer will miss at least a few weeks with a broken hand that will require surgery. Mateer sustained the injury in Saturday's 24-17 win over Auburn. Earlier in the week, Mateer became the Heisman odds leader, completing over 67% of his passes.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the fan of state. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, and you. 844-326-3663, the number to be a part of the show. That's also the number to the Hub City Spartanburger text line, 844-FANFONE. If you want to get on the show this morning, we'd be glad to have you. Talked a bunch of college football back in hour number 1, specifically about Clemson and South Carolina. The question that I am asking you today for Clemson and South Carolina fans, we annually do this at the beginning of the year or right before the year begins. Every year, as we head into the football season, I ask for any team you are a fan of to set a realistic ceiling and floor expectation for your football team. This year, when we asked that question going into the season, the responses that we got were, for Clemson, once I took all of said responses and once I averaged all of those responses together, Clemson fans said a realistic expectation was 11-1, an ACC championship, multiple college football playoff wins, and the majority of you said at least an appearance in the college football playoffs national championship game.
Poof.
Gone. And that's not me saying that. That's what Dabo said earlier this week when he said, we're not going to win the national championship this year. So it is time for us to regroup, refocus, establish a new group of objectives, goals, priorities, and execute on that. South Carolina, when I asked for your realistic ceiling and floor expectations, we had a couple of people that said 10-2. We had a handful of you that said 8-4. When I averaged them together, the average expectation for South Carolina fans was 9-3 to be in contention for an SEC title game appearance until late in the season and to earn a college football playoff bid, likely an at-large bid, either number 11 or 12. So the average expectation for South Carolina was 9-3, be in the mix late in the year, and sneak into the back door of the college football playoffs.
What's their record right now?
South Carolina is 2-2 with 2 losses in the SEC.
So, well, part of that could still happen. They could still be 9-3.
They still could be 9-3. But, as I pointed out a number of times, if you take multiple losses in the first half of the season, I don't see a world where you're not taking multiple losses in the back half of the season. So, the question that we are asking for your involvement with today is this, and you can call and give us your response. You can text and give us your response. If you prefer, you can email me, rob.brown@thefanupstate.com with your response. But I am going to lift our annual preseason conversation, and I'm going to drop it into week number 4. Set for me a realistic ceiling and floor for the remainder of the ACC and SEC seasons of the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Clemson Tigers. I've gone over and done mine. I will share them with you coming up here in a few minutes. I would like your answer to that as well. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. But it is 7:05 in the morning. You have 55 minutes left until you get to work. Here's the good news, people. The good news is football is back tomorrow evening. The bad news is that you've got to get through today and tomorrow at work to be ready for football to be back tomorrow evening. And if you've got to do that, one of the best things in the world that you can do is to talk sports at work so that you can kill some time. I mean, that's just the best thing in the world you can do. And if you're going to do that, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to know what's going on in the world of sports. If you've got to know what's going on in the world of sports, you've come to the right place because we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers say, "You're fired!" First bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet on the Fan Upstate.
It is the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet, the top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports with your coworkers or your supervisors or your manager or your boss or that one guy that works down the hall that you don't really have anything to do with, but you always seem to take your break at the same time because you like talking football with them. Well, when you do that, here's what you're going to need to know, ladies and gentlemen. It is item number 1. To Major League Baseball we go as we approach the end of the season. The Atlanta Braves have a game today at 12:15. Then they have a 3-game set, and the season is mercifully over for the Atlanta Braves.
So as a fan of the team, and you know it's over, you still watch like on a day like today when they're on at noon?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yes, I will watch today's game at 12:15. And again, I'm not watching it as a fan like rah shish boom ba, let's go win the game. I'm more watching, all right, like is Drake Baldwin going to continue the hot streak? He had another hit last night. Is Matty Ice Baby Olsen as a slugger still that guy, or do we need to worry about finding some power in the offseason? What is the pitching on the back end going to look like? I believe that middle relief and closing pitching is going to have to be not a, but the priority for the Atlanta Braves in the offseason. So I'm watching more as a guy who would like to be excited about the future than I'm watching as a fan who's like, yay, let's go beat the Nationals. Like, all right, I guess. I don't really care. Like, let's make sure that we are building momentum into the offseason. Let's make sure that we are leaving as many questions as possible answered and not unanswered going into the offseason. Let's try to narrow down what do we really need to focus on. Is Ha-Seong Kim now our offseason priority? Is 3 years and probably $65 million worth of contract too much for a shortstop when we know we need pitching help? There's a lot of questions that have to be answered, and these last 4 games are where you're going to answer them, I think. Braves do get a 3-2 win last night. One of the bright spots of the year, Hurston Waldrop, the rookie, got his 6th win last night. He is now 6-1 in games where he reached a decision. 6 innings pitched, gave up 5 hits, just 1 run. It was earned, walked 4, K'd 5 through 92 pitches. The bats did calm down for Atlanta. A day after they had 16 hits, yesterday accumulated 6. Michael Harris II, the only multi-hit day dude, 2 of 3 from the dish with a couple of RBIs to show for it. The difference, the Braves went money ball a couple of times. Ronald Acuna Jr. hit number 20 on the season. He took 1 yard in the 6th inning. Michael Harris II hit his 19th dong of the year. He went deep in the 5th inning. The RBIs accumulated in that game were those 2 home runs. Ronnie's dong came with 2 outs in that game. The Braves went 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. That, I think, is going to be an enormous focus for this baseball team next year, whether Brian Snitker is back or if they move on to someone new. Having better ABs when guys are in scoring position, that's got to get cleaned up. Like that's something has to be done differently based on the results, or the lack of, I guess I should say, the lack of results from the way that this team has not been hitting the baseball well with guys on the backs. Also in the world of baseball, as there is some other news with a win last night, the Seattle Mariners have clinched a spot in the postseason playoffs. Not only that, they are now, with 4 games to play, a full 3 games clear of the Houston Astros for the AL West title. That also has created a world where the Houston Astros are at a threat of not making the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Why? Because the Blue Jays and the Yankees have both clinched out of the East. The Yankees clinched last night. The Blue Jays, clinched on Monday night. Now, That eliminated the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles. The Red Sox still floating out there in purgatory. Boston can still get in. They are in a wild card spot right now. Last night, the Cleveland Guardians have caught the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers, we were all waiting to see who was going to have a collapse down the stretch. The team that boasted Major League Baseball's best record for the majority of the season is the team that is collapsing. The Tigers are 1-9 in the last 10. They are on a 7-game losing streak. They had Skubal on the mound last night, and he could not get a dub. So Cleveland has now tied Detroit in the AL Central at 85-72 with 4 games left to play. Either one of those teams could win that division. Either one of those teams could end up in a wild card spot. The Mariners, as mentioned, 4 games up on the Astros with 4 to play. So the Mariners have all but locked up the West at this point, and there is something to be said for that. The Astros, however, have 84 wins. That puts them behind the either the Yankees or the Jays and the Red Sox out of the East. That puts them behind the Guardians and the Tigers in the Central. And it has the door open for Houston to either claim the last wild card spot or 2 for the first time in, I believe, 76 years, not make the MLB postseason. Over in the National League, the picture was a little bit more clear going in. The Padres have clinched a spot in the playoffs. However, that division's still up for grabs. The Padres just a game and a half back of the LA Dodgers. No team's going to win 100 games this year, by the way, but the Padres 1.5 games back of the Dodgers with 4 to play. They can very much catch. They have clinched a playoff berth, so have the Dodgers. The Diamondbacks and Giants not eliminated, but do have work to do. The Diamondbacks 80 wins, the Giants 77. The Brewers have clinched the NL Central. The Chicago Cubs, however, have clinched a wild card spot. Which wild card seed will it be? Up in the air. As of right now, they are wild card seed number 1. However, depending on what happens with the results of the NL West, that could be changed down to number 2. As of right now, the Marlins are not dead in the wild card race, although they would need all the help to get in with 77 wins. The Mets finally got a dub last night, 5-5, and ended a long losing streak to get there. The Mets with 81 wins. They are not going to win the East. Obviously, the Philadelphia Phillies were the first team to clinch a divisional win by winning the NL East. The Mets, however, still alive for a wild card berth with 81 wins. However, as of right now, they are behind the Chicago Cubs and the San Diego Padres. It is a race for the final wild card spot between whoever comes in second in the West, either the Dodgers or the Padres. The Diamondbacks, who have 80 wins, 1 less than the Mets. And the Reds, who have 80 wins, 1 less than the Mets. Still a lot of baseball left up in the air. Still a lot to get to. All right, let's get to item numero 2. Over to college football, we go for a couple of very quick stories. The first we will mention, the college football coach with the second longest tenure in his job is not that anymore. The Oklahoma State Cowboys have ended an era 18 years after Mike Gundy said, "I'm a man, I'm 40. The new phrase is, "I'm unemployed, I'm 58. Mike Gundy released from his contract with the Oklahoma State Cowboys yesterday, did not give him an opportunity to finish out his contract there at Okie State. Gundy has been in charge of the Cowboys. This was his 21st season with the team. The only guy who has been in office longer than Mike Gundy is Kirk Ferentz, who has been Iowa's coach dating back to 1999. Gundy's exit comes 4 days after the Cowboys lost 19-12 to Tulsa this weekend. The athletic director of Oklahoma State, Chad Weiberg, said, quote, "I expected the results of the season to be different than they've been so far. That goes back to the expectation level that Coach Gundy has set for the program. We have higher expectations than that, so when it doesn't appear that was going to be met, it felt for the good of the program. It was time to make this decision so that we could start the process of getting the program where we want it to be." Gundy was informed of his firing before they made it public. John Mateer, who had become the Heisman Trophy front runner after leading the Oklahoma Boomer Sooners to a 24-17 win over the Auburn Tigers this weekend, is going to be out for some number of weeks. They did not disclose details of the hand injury that Mateer suffered in the first quarter of the Auburn game, at least not, well, maybe they did. Lonzo's telling me that they did. I did not see it, but it broke. I know it had something to do with a thumb is all I saw.
No, he broke his hand.
Okay.
I can get the specifics. If you like.
Please do if you don't mind. John Mateer is going to require hand surgery. That plus his rehab is going to result in Mateer missing out for at least a number of weeks. We do not know how many weeks that is going to be. What's the problem there? Well, they do have Kent State coming up this weekend. The week after that, 10-11, the Red River rivalry against the University of Texas. Then it's South Carolina, and then 5 consecutive ranked games with Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, and Mizzou, as well as South Carolina wedged in between Texas and that group. So a real bad time for the Heisman frontrunner to go down in the landscape of college football. And finally, South Carolina has gotten their results, their SEC draw for the next 4 seasons. We know you're playing Florida. We know you're playing Kentucky, and we know you're playing Georgia as your rotating opponents annually. Now we know that Georgia and Kentucky will come to the crib. Florida will be your visit of those 3 in 2026. Also on the 2026 schedule, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas A&M all coming to Columbia. Alabama, Arkansas, and Oklahoma will be your road trips in 2026. The next year, LSU, Mizzou, Texas at home, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Vandy on the road. In 2028, take the 2026 opponents, flip home and away. In 2029, take the 2027 opponents and flip home and away. Let's get to item number 3.
By the way, real quick, Pete Thamel identified Mateer's injury as a broken bone in his right hand. So they're not saying which bone it is. It could be that one that we talked about yesterday.
Hey, mate.
The hey, mate.
Hey, mate.
I don't know. Maybe it's that.
It might be that. We will find out. We will get more details today, I am sure. Item number 3, back to the WNBA playoffs we go, is round number 2. A best-of-5 round is underway. We got started last night with an 89-83 victory of the Phoenix Mercury over the Minnesota Lynx last night. The Mercury led by Satu Sabali's 24 points. Alyssa Thomas pitched in 19 as well. Sammy Whitcomb had 13 off the bench. 8 boards for Alyssa Thomas to go with 13 assists, just a couple of rebounds shy of the triple-double. 24 for Nafisa Collier. Kayla McBride had 21, and Courtney Williams had 20 in the loss for the Lynx. The problem for Minnesota, just 3 points in total off of the bench. The Aces tie their series with the Fever 90-68, a drumming of Indiana last night, and surprise to exactly nobody, the four-time WNBA MVP, the only four-time Asia Wilson had another game, 10 of 18 from the floor. She had 25 points, 9 boards, and 5 steals in the winning effort. And Alyssa Smith had 18 on 7 of 9 from the floor. She also went 4 of 9 from the stripe, had 7 boards in this one. The Aces dominant in game number 2. Both of those series are now tied up at a game apiece in round number 2. We've got for you on tap this evening. On Friday evening, we will continue with those series. We have also got games coming up for you in our other series as well. So we will talk a little more WNBA playoffs, especially when we get to the championship, which is this year a best of 7. When we come back, realistic expectations, ceiling and floor for the remainder of the South Carolina and Clemson football seasons. I've got a few of you who have texted your answers. I would like the rest of you to do the same at 844-326-3663. I will give you mine when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Morning, Cruz. Welcome back. Good to have you. Glad you're here.
Stay absolute.
Always absolute. Big absolute vodka guy.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but
It's a brand of vodka. It's a delightful brand of vodka. Also, the wife found cherry flavored vodka. Left a bottle of it at the house. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, cherry vodka in Coke Zero or Sprite, magnifique. It just tastes like a cherry Coke. I played some Helldivers last night with the boys and had one. And I was also in bed at like 10 o'clock. Didn't go to sleep at 10 o'clock.
Well, you tried.
I did try. Just couldn't do it. All right, boys and girls, y'all stay right there. We'll be back in just a minute. Realistic ceiling and floor for the Clemson Tigers and the Gamecocks. Leave them in the chat. We'll get your answers on the air when we come back. We were talking moments ago during the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office any given morning. Told you that John Mateer is going to be missing some time. He broke a bone in his hand. I don't believe we know specifically what bone it is.
Cannot find which bone it is.
Okay. We're going to, just because we like saying, hey, mate, we're going to assume it's the hey, mate bone until we hear otherwise. We don't know that it is, to be clear. It's just an excuse for Lonzo and I to repeatedly say, hey, mate.
Hey, mate. After we figured out, thanks to, what was it, Google Translate or whatever, how to say it. So now we know, hey, mate.
Hey, mate. So what does that do to our 2025 Heisman Trophy odds? Now, you guys know my feelings on the Heisman Trophy. I track the odds during the year, though I do not particularly care about the Heisman Trophy because I do think it has been turned into a quarterback popularity contest. I do not think it goes annually. It's not that it never does, but I do not think that it goes annually to the best player in college football. I think it goes to the best college quarterback who comes from the best team that is in the mix at the end of the year. And that is why I find these new and updated odds after John Mateer's injury, required surgery, and absence from the team for question mark number of weeks, very interesting. I talked last night on BetMGM tonight because my poor guy Ryan Horvat, he told me about halfway through that game against Auburn, where John Mateer was good, like real good, he immediately went and got a ticket for John Mateer to win the Heisman. And then he finds out 2 days later that John Mateer is going to be missing some number of weeks with surgery on his busted hand. And so he asked me, who else is in the mix that you like? Now, my answer was Dante Moore out of Oregon. Because if you're watching this kid's play, now, in fairness, the Ducks are undefeated. Great. But the Ducks ain't played nobody, Paul! So their first test is this Saturday. The Oregon Ducks are taking on this Saturday the Pennsylvania State University Nittany Lions. It's the whiteout game. It's at Penn State. This is going to be Dante Moore's first test. But as we have talked about with Florida State, with Alabama, with a number of other teams, a great team, a truly great team, a team that is a championship caliber team, when they square off with lesser teams, FCS teams, etc., they're going to go kick booty. They're going to go dominate. There's going to be zero questions. You're going to end the game, and you're going to go nothing to nitpick about this one. They executed flawlessly. Well, I would make the assertion so far that the Oregon Ducks have done that. They hung 59 on Montana State. They have played, by the way, 3 power teams so far. A bad Oklahoma State team who just fired Mike Gundy, sure, they hung 69 on them. A up-and-coming Northwestern team. This was a team that a lot of folks on the BetMGM network I work with bet the over on Northwestern because they said, like, this team is up and coming. I don't know a ton about Northwestern, unfortunately, but from all the numbers relative to expectation, Northwestern's overperforming. Oregon beat them 34-14 on the road. And then they played the Civil War this past weekend. Oregon State is not the same Oregon State team that it was a couple of years ago, both before and during the DJ Uiagalelei era, before their entire coaching staff up and left town in the middle of the night. They beat Oregon State. They beat the Beavs 41-7. They have done what good football teams do. And a large part of the reason is because Dante Moore has been a dog. 962 yards passing, completing 74.7% of his passes. I don't care if you have only played cupcakes. Completing just around 75%, 3 out of every 4 passes, is really good. He's averaging over 10 yards per completion. He's got 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's been sacked 1 time so far, and that 1 time he's lost 9 total yards to sacks. Put that in comparison to Lenora Sellers, who lost, 55 yards in sacks this past weekend? So when Horvat said, Rob Brown, who do you like for the Heisman now that Mateer's out? My answer was Dante Moore. Dante Moore right now is sitting at 10-1 to win the Heisman Trophy. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he ain't played nobody, Paul. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he is a young cat who is about to get his first genuine test on the road. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he is a sophomore starting his first year, and he's still got Penn State, and he's still got Ohio State out there waiting for him. So there's a lot of, he looks great so far, but let's see what he's going to look like when he comes up against a real defense. Here's the fun part about that. Dante Moore is not the Heisman Trophy favorite in the betting odds today. Let's play a little Rob Brown Show home edition. Grab your pencil and your pad. Let's see who can get this pop quiz correct. Who, right now, is the shortest odds to win the Heisman Trophy? You got Carson Beck out there. You got Jeremiah Smith, who's been coming a little bit more alive game by game. You got Gunnar Stockton for the Georgia Bulldogs. A lot of people like me getting more and more confident in the pick of Georgia to win the SEC championship, though I do have a hot take about the Georgia-Alabama game coming up later on in the show. Marcel Reed at A&M is impressing people. Joey Aguilar had a bad second half for Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, but outside of that, he's been stellar. Who is right now the shortest odds, the Heisman Trophy winner favorite in Las Vegas, Nevada? Zoe, you got a guess? Any of the dudes I just mentioned? Somebody I'm thinking outside of the box?
I'm just going to go with Gunnar Stockton because he has a name that should be on the Heisman Trophy.
Gunnar Stockton's a great quarterback name. I mean, it is the best quarterback name in football this year. Carson Beck ain't a bad football name. Gunnar Stockton's a great football name. Turns out it is none of the guys that I just mentioned. It is a quarterback.
It's Julian Sayin.
It is not Julian Sayin.
Okay, it was worth a shot.
It was worth a shot. Julian Sayin, by the way, 17-1. Is just behind Garrett Nussmeier, who is now 15-1, dealing with a torso injury, by the way. Should be back. I'm surprised Garrett Nussmeier's fallen quite that far. But I would also point out that I think, as I've mentioned a few times, I think LSU's a little overrated. We'll come back to that here in a minute. Wesley says, he said, actually, let me give him credit for what he said, which is, obviously, it's Diego, which I absolutely love that joke, and I love that thought, but unfortunately, Diego Pavia, not in that mix. He is 50-1 right now. And I'll give you some of the other names, like, say, Lenora Sellers, who is now 80-1, and Cade Klubnik, who is now 100-1 to win the Heisman Trophy. They were two of the top five at the beginning of the year.
Why are they still on the list? Shouldn't you disappear after a certain point?
No, everybody's on the list because, hey, man, what happens?
People betting on the right.
Well, I mean, look, you look at Cade Klubnik and you go, okay, look, he had a real bad time, but like, what if they bounce back and he throws for 77 touchdowns down the stretch? He's not going to, but what if he did? That's why that bet's 100-1. You put, $100 down, you win $1,000 if Cade Klubnik has the greatest second half resurgence of all time. The shortest odds on the Heisman Trophy board right now, and the reason I'm invested is because I said on this show on Monday, and I said last night on BetMGM tonight, and I said on Sean Levine's show on Monday night, and I'll say it again right now. The Indiana Hoosiers are a real and good football team. The shortest odds on the Heisman Trophy board right now belong to Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback of the Indiana Hoosiers. I said on this show Monday morning, Sean Levine Monday night, this show yesterday. I said it last night on BetMGM tonight. Some respect need to be put on the name of the Indiana Hoosiers.
I don't know. You were respecting them a lot last year, and then when it counted, they just didn't do it.
Yes, when they lost and only lost to the two teams who played for the national championship game and literally nobody else. That's the only, well, in the playoffs, obviously. The only two teams they lost to were the two teams that played for the Natty last year. And we're gonna pretend like that. Like if anybody else had done that, anybody else would have done that. Would have been like, that's a year those boys are bouncing back. The Indiana Hoosiers are for real. Kurt Cignetti is for real. He wins. Google him. And now the Indiana Hoosiers are not just undefeated and not just picking up momentum and doing, again, like I said about Oregon, everything that they need to do to prove that they're a good team, including beating a top 10 team by 53 points this past weekend. but now their quarterback is the Heisman Trophy frontrunner. Y'all, the Indiana Hoosiers are not a joke. They are not a team to be sarcastically mentioned at where they are. They are a for real football team, and now they have a for real quarterback under center. Fernando Mendoza, then it's Dante Moore at 10-1, Carson back at 12-1, Jeremiah Smith, the first quarterback, non-quarterback at 14-1, tied with Gunnar Stockton, Marcel Reed, Josh Hoover, and Joey Aguilar, Garrett Nussmeier, all at 15-1. When we come back, I'll give you my realistic ceiling and floor for both Clemson and South Carolina. I want yours as well. That's next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Monday. So good to me. Why is that in my hand? It's not even Monday.
I don't know. Let's not.
It's because I just said twice. I said on Monday. That's why. Okay. Obviously, it's Diego. Wesley, I think that your significant other may be pregnant again right now because of that joke. That's how good that joke was. Stay right there. Be right back. realistic ceiling and floor expectations for Clemson and for South Carolina for the remainder of this season based on what we have seen out of these two teams so far. I am looking for yours. We've had a couple of answers so far. Joey B chimed in first. He said Clemson's new ceiling is 9-3 based on the fact that they have more talent than anyone else on their schedule. But their floor is 2-10 because outside of Furman, there's not a team left that they can't lose to. Now, that's a pretty big window there between we can win every game left on the schedule and have a 9-3 season, and we could lose every game on the schedule with the exception of Furman and end up 2-10 when it is all said and done. I would like to try to close that window just a little bit. Now, doing that based on what we've seen on TV, doing that based on what we've seen on tape from these teams, and obviously hard to predict what is going to happen on November 14th when you play Louisville, but based on what we have seen so far, I've got a couple of thoughts about where this team may end up finishing up at. I think you beat North Carolina. I think you beat Boston College. I think even if you play as, yes, I'll utilize the word, as poorly as you played against Syracuse and against Georgia Tech, North Carolina is a disaster right now. So disastrous that this is a spot ordinarily where I think for a lot of teams, I would say, okay, Bill Belichick's getting absolutely busted up on right now. This team is being laughed at right now for how bad it is. Like the guys on College Football Final on ESPN, I was watching it Saturday night before I went to Betty Bye, and one of them, I can't remember who, I think it was EJ Manuel, asked the host guy, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, have you seen North Carolina play? And the guy went, I mean, I've seen them try. Like, it's rough. They're getting beat up. So I said, if you're North Carolina and you're getting laughed at quite literally on the sports channel outlets right now, and your head coach, assuming that the boys have bought into Bill Belichick, which, to be honest with you, I don't think they have. I don't think they have bought into Bill Belichick. I think it could very much be a case of, yeah, like we knew you were good back in the day, but the guys that were on this team, they weren't alive when Hoodie won the first Super Bowl, right? So, like, it's been a minute. So, with that being said, I would ordinarily say North Carolina's a bounce back. Go beat the hell out of the Tar Heels. Find yourselves a little bit. Or that is what I'm going to say, I think happens. This is a spot I would love to say this is a prove yourself game if you're North Carolina. Not only do you feel like you need to get it right, but you also look and you go, yo, if Georgia Tech and Syracuse can do it, we can do it too. I don't think they can. I like that as a win. I like Boston College as a win. This is a BC team that just kind of is what it is. They're 1-2 with a loss to Stanford on the season. Like, beat that team. But then we get into the part of the season that is very interesting. And this is where I ask for ceiling and floor, because the floor for this team is you come up against an SMU team that is not what they were last year. And that's because they lost their entire running back core. A SMU team that is 2-2, but their losses came as a 3-point loss to Baylor, not a bad football team, and a 11-point loss to TCU, a good football team. I told you that one last week. Like, this TCU team is a good team. They got a great quarterback down there. Do I think you could lose to SMU? If you play like you did against Syracuse, yes. If you play like you did against Georgia Tech, yes. So let's say 2-1. Duke, again, I think we know what Duke is at 2-2, but at the same time, they put up 45 against NC State, and they looked like a better football team. Did Duke find something? And you would have told me that's not a losable game? Did you not lose to Duke 2 years ago? It was that loss to Duke a couple of years ago. Granted, at Duke, and this one is at home, but that loss against Duke, I very much remember, was kind of a trigger for the conversation that a lot of people didn't want to have at the time of, are we seeing in real time the beginning of the end of the Clemson Tigers. And a lot of people got real upset about that. Like, you lost to a Duke team that has a great coach and the best roster at the time. Now they have a better roster than that. So don't tell me they can't lose that game. Florida State. Again, I'm not saying Florida State is back. That win over Alabama, unlike LSU's win over Clemson, which looks like it's a worse win than we thought it was at the time, that win over Alabama looks progressively better. Now, Alabama has only played a couple of bad teams. They played Wisconsin last weekend and UL Monroe, but hot take, you're going to learn a lot about Alabama this weekend. They play Georgia, and I think Alabama covers the spread in this game against Georgia. I'm not ready to call for an outright win, but I think they cover the spread against that. If Bama covers against Georgia, I think you got to look at Florida State and go, maybe this team's got some fire to it. I think that's a loss at home. Then you're at Louisville. Again, this team is another one of those weird teams because with Miller Moss, they can go out there and hang 51-40, or they can go get into a 28-14 shootout with JMU. That would be James Madison University. But do they gel? Do they find the play calling that has kind of been a bit of a mystery so far for Jeff Brom and finding out what is Miller Moss's best game plan? I don't know. Then you got Furman. Then you're at South Carolina. And while I am obviously disappointed right now in South Carolina, I don't think it is unfair to say that this game, as it is a big-time rivalry game, this game is as much about vibes as it is anything else, right? Which team is playing better entering the game? Which team is clicking entering the game? Which of these two teams is going to be standing on the gas pedal when you play? Zoe, if we had to pick this game right now, if these two teams, South Carolina and Clemson, were playing this weekend, despite the disappointment I have seen out of South Carolina, I'd pick the Gamecocks this weekend. Not saying I will at the end of the year, but this weekend, I pick South Carolina.
Well, obviously, Clemson fans out there, oh, yeah, of course Rob Brown's going to pick South Carolina. Well, they've beat you recently, like a season ago. And right now, for sure. And I doubt I changed my mind about it. Things would have to go horribly wrong.
Yeah. And again, now I will give you one more addendum to that. If you ask me which of these two teams do I think I would bet on to be in a bowl game at the end of the year, the answer is Clemson. If you ask me which of these two teams do I have a bigger belief? Is that
because of schedule?
That is a factor in it. I also think that just on paper, I think Clemson is a better football team on paper. And I do think that at some point, if it's not the coaches, I think at some point, if nothing else, the players are all going to look at each other and be like, look, even if we suck, let's go bust some skulls. Because right now we're not doing that.
What happens every year. Let's hope that doesn't happen literally.
Well, metaphorically bust skulls. Yeah. Right now, I'm going to say my expectation for this year for the Clemson Tigers is 7-5. I think 7-5 is the goal. I think you're bowl eligible before you play South Carolina, but I think you're 7-5 to wrap up this year when it's all said and done. I look down, and we're going to do South Carolina coming up in the next segment of the show. We're also going to hand out your TMF-INR awards in the next hour of the show, but I'll lead with South Carolina, and then we'll do our college and pro TMF-INR awards in the next hour.
Yeah, I just don't see why they should beat North Carolina. They should beat Boston College. They should beat SMU because SMU is not that great. They should beat Duke. Probably lose to Florida State. Probably lose to Louisville, but
not just would we, though? Not just would we? Did we both not last week just say, yeah, I know it's not what you want, but you should beat Syracuse, right? The problem I'm having right now with this football team is that the shoulds aren't happening. You should have a better offensive line than you do. You should, even if you're only going to score 24 a game, around where your average is right now. I think it's at like 25 and a half, 26 points a game right now. Even if you're only going to score 26 a game, your defensive front seven, which I was told coming into this year should produce a number of NFL draft picks.
Yeah, I heard that too. Here's the thing though. Did the players come in believing the hype? Believing, oh yeah, we're going to that, and now they can't get past the fact that you're not going to the national championship, that you're struggling. Can they get past that when you believe your own hype? I'm not saying that that's the case, but we've seen that happen before.
Sure.
Maybe they believe their own hype, and this is when it comes to a great motivator like Dabo Swinney to get them back from from down there where they are, down in the dumps, which they should be with how they've been playing, and get them motivated to win some more games.
You know why we as human beings have like 70,000 phrases about how you gotta, if you get knocked down, you get up again, or just keep swimming if you've got kids or whatever. Like we have 70,000 phrases about how if adversity strikes and you get knocked down, you gotta get up and you gotta keep going. Chumbawamba made it the most popular song on planet Earth.
Wondering when you're going to mention that.
As soon as possible, as is usual. I would throw as many Chumbawamba song references out there as I can.
Yeah, that's the only song that I know of that they did. So, but still, it's one that keeps being used over and over again.
Of course it is, because that's a human trait. Is when things don't go the way you want them to go, and you take an L. It is very easy to retreat into yourself, to retract, to not go out and try again. That's why we have so damn much. There's motivational posters in every office in America about just keep going, head down, nose to the grindstone, yada, yada, yada. Here's the thought that I'm at right now. There's one of two ways this team responds. And Dabo Swinney said they had a players-only meeting or a team-only meeting this week, and he said that it was a very emotional meeting, and that guys were in there stepping up and being leaders, and they were all trying to hold each other accountable. And that's all well and good.
Why was he in a players only?
Well, I don't know that it was players only. I said that, and that's the NFL catchphrase. I don't know. I believe it was a team-wide meeting.
Okay, all right.
But the point is, regardless of who was in that building, who was in that meeting or not, this is a spot where one of two things is going to happen. Either they are going to not follow the advice of Chumbawamba, and you're going to keep them down, and this team's going to come out and they're just going to be flat the rest of the year, in which case they could be a 6-6 or a 5-7 team. Or they're going to go, okay, Natty's out the window. This is what Dabo said. Natty's out the window. We got to set new goals now. And I think at this point, one of the new goals ought to be, let's just go beat the teams we're supposed to beat. Let's just go out physical them. Let's go out athlete them, and we will fall into our groove by doing that. And if that's the case, yeah, I think you're ripping 2-0 off the bye. At that point, you're sitting at 3-3, and then it's a matter out of SMU, Duke, Florida State, Louisville, and South Carolina. Can you get 2 of those wins or 3 of those wins to get bowl eligible? And I would, 2 with the Furman win in there, assuming it's a win. The answer is yes. So I'm going to give them credit for a North Carolina win, a Boston College win. I'm going to give them credit for the Furman win. That gets you to 3. And then I'm going to say out of SMU, Duke, Louisville, and South Carolina, I'll say you go 2-2. And that ends up getting you to a 7-5 mark. And I think that's where I'm going to put a realistic expectation for Clemson. Get to 7-5. Don't get Florida Stated like last year, where when it hit the rails, everybody just kind of checked out and started doing their own thing. That is the one positive about Dabo having a Dabo roster, is that I don't think you have to worry about what happened to Florida State last year, where everybody just said, all right, I'm just going to go get mine. I don't think that's a reality in that locker room. But at the same time, it is hard to have massive expectations, have those expectations fall apart, and not retreat into yourself a little bit. That happened to me recently. I had some expectations about a thing. That thing did not work out for me the way that I wanted it to. And I had about 2 days where I felt sorry for myself, and I just kind of shut it down. And it took the wife coming up and being like, dude, you suck right now. She didn't say that. That's how I talk to me. That's not how she talks to me.
I can picture her saying that to you,
though. She would, but like not in that moment, right? Like she'd give me a little breathing room. But the point is, I had to have this moment where I was like, you're right. That didn't work out, but I got to get back to it if I want something else to work out. Does Clemson do that? If they're all Dabo guys, yes. But I still think with the teams ahead of you, unless the coaching changes, like unless I see difference on the football field, I think your realistic ceiling floor at this point is 7-5 at this point. All right, we got a couple of y'all's responses that have come in on the text line. When we come back, we'll do South Carolina, realistic ceiling and floor. Then we'll hand out in the back half of the hour the TMFINR awards for this week. Then in the final hour, we'll do an audio blitz, and then whatever the hell you guys want to get to, including some NFL talk. All of that after Lonzo. The expectations for this Sports Flash? Excellence.
Oh, boy. See what we can do. It's 10 straight wins for the Atlanta Braves after a 3-2 victory over the Nationals. Hurston Waldrop collected his 6th win. Atlanta's bat slowed down with just 6 hits, but 2 of those were home runs from Ronald Acuna Jr. and Michael Harris II. The final game of the 3-game series is today at 12:15. Second longest tenured coach in college football is out as Oklahoma State fired head coach Mike Gundy yesterday after a 1-2 start to the season. Gundy, who is a man, was in his 21st season leading the Cowboys. Only Kirk Ferentz, in charge of the Iowa Hawkeyes since 1999, has been in a locker room longer. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer will miss at least a few weeks with a broken hand that will require surgery. Mateer sustained the injury in Saturday's 24-17 win over Auburn. Earlier in the week, Mateer became the Heisman odds leader, completing over 67% of his passes. Got to fix that. That's what happens when you don't have time to proofread. I'll fix that. Yeah, it's someone was in the room, so I didn't get a chance to proofread and practice, I guess. It's well written, but it's not written in the way that people talk. So I needed to switch some things around. I stumbled on that the first time too, but I fixed it. So we'll see. It's a hard thing to do, but when I write for other people, I try to write how they talk. When Rob writes, he writes for written, not for read. Which is not a bad thing. It's just something that I have to fix. And it's a challenge, and I failed. But I'm going to get up, and I'm going to fix it.
With great deals coming this Prime Day Deal Days, October 7th and 8th, greatness is a deal away. So if you love baking, you can get a deal on the new mixer, transforming you into the Lord of the Loaves. Make way.
Oh, okay. No, it's not Rob's fault. It's my fault for not fixing it. It's a challenge. And sometimes I fall short of the goal, and I did that, but I've fixed it now, and I won't stumble over that part again.
What part was it?
The only Kirk Ferentz in charge of the Iowa Hawkeyes since 1999. It's not, if you're saying that out loud, I don't think you say it that way. And so I get to it and I stumble because everything's moving smooth to that point, and it's like it does.
I write it.
You write for written, and that's and I have to fix it. And
I write
that's
it the
fine.
way I used to write my stories to put into a teleprompter
Right.
when I had to be professional on the news.
Right.
All right, we got a couple of texts that have come in so far. Let's get to those. Then we're going to get to the realistic expectations for the Gamecocks of South Carolina coming up here in just a few minutes from now. Texter wrote in and said, Rob, Clemson is all caps not beating Florida State. I mean, right now, I have no reason to believe that they would. I think you bump into
who's saying they're going to? I don't think of the Clemson fans who are still all in, they can't be saying that, right?
I don't think so. And again, like, I think you can look at a couple of reasons for that. I think number one is you can make the argument that they weren't last year. You can't make the argument they weren't the year before that. Florida State is a team that is coached well, is calling plays to the strength of their offense, which is Thomas Castellanos' ability to move around the football field quite a bit. And obviously we got to the rumor out of Florida State is that the injury sustained that took Thomas Castellanos out of that game last week against Kent State was a stinger, and that he's fine. We'll find out if it impacts him at all. But Florida State is calling plays that move Castellanos around the football field, right? Like, yes, there are some pocket passes thrown in there, but they're shifting protection to the left and the right. They're rolling them out. And on top of that, they're creating opportunities. You're going to see this out of Florida State quite a bit. They'll snap the ball, roll Castellanos to the right. The right guard will actually pull around the tackle to give Castellanos one extra blocker to the outside. The center will block down. The tackle will block in. That guard will either pick up the edge rusher and push him back to the inside to give Castellanos room to run, or if the edge rusher dives in underneath the tackle, now he's got an extra runner out there, an extra blocker, and he'll just tuck it and run it. That is what I am talking about when I say call to the strengths of your players. Make your system fit the players. Don't demand that your players fit the system. To me, that's what the best head coaches do, the best offensive coordinators do. Haynes King plays a very similar style of football to Thomas Castellanos. And he's the reason they won that game. If he can win that game, Thomas Castellanos, who has backed up every word he said preseason in terms of what he believed he was going to do for Florida State, I think he's a better version of that. Probably not as physical with not as physical with the football, but a lot more shifty when it gets to the outside. And open field tackling has been to some degree a problem for Clemson. So I think that is I think it's a fair take. Hunt GPT text. He said Carolina's realistic ceiling 8-4 or 6-6 is the floor. Clemson ceiling 7-5, 4-8. As the floor. I don't really have a pushback. Like, ordinarily, when you guys send these in, I may push back against either your ceiling or your floor. Rarely both, rarely never. I don't have a problem with that, other than to say, I don't think Carolina can get to 8-4. I don't. If you're going to lose to Missouri, which is a good team, I think we do have to give them credit for being a better team than we expected coming into the year. If you're going to lose to Mizzou, unless John Mateer's out for that game, Oklahoma's getting you. I think we're going to learn a lot about Ole Miss this weekend. I think there's a very good chance Ole Miss covers the spread against LSU this weekend. Like, that's a tough back half. I don't know if 8-4. I would say the only difference, Hunt GPT, I would give you there, I think the ceiling for Carolina is 7-5. I think 6-6 is in play. I think the floor is probably 5-7. I think the floor is miss a bowl game for South Carolina this year. And talk about letting the air out of the room. 7-5, 4-8 for Clemson. I'm probably fine with both of those numbers. I think 4-8 feels like it would be time for some really awkward conversations at the end of the year, but we will see. Texas said, Rob, crazy thing about South Carolina is this is exactly how we started last year, so I don't think it's impossible to get to 8-4 or 9-3. I don't disagree with the start last year, and again, we also have talked about the fact that team last year coulda, shoulda, woulda beat LSU. You got that one robbed away from you. Coulda, shoulda, woulda beat Alabama. You shut your own genitalia in the door against Bama. That's a game you absolutely should have won. So, the difference is last year you could see the spark. Like, do we see a spark in this team right now? Like, outside of Akari Swain and his punt returns, which have kind of been the spark, if you're relying on our punt returner will pop one to take the lid off the place, that's a problem. That should be an added benefit, not the spark.
I think he should also keep in mind that Lenore Sellers is coming back from a concussion, and it may take him a couple of games to get back into form.
I mean, for the record, he threw the ball pretty well when he threw the ball this weekend. The problem I had was twofold. Like I've said 100 times, he's not a pocket passer, and you're trying to make him into one, and he's not making good decisions with the ball when he is. He's not making good decisions with the football. And if your quarterback is not a pocket passer and is making bad decisions with the football when you call pocket passes, and you don't change that, which again, I'm kind of at the point now where I go, what's on film? I very much hope that against Kentucky, we see Mike Shula open the playbook and start utilizing Lenoris as the weapon that he is. Why are we not going RPO? Why are we not rolling and shifting coverage like Florida State does for Castellanos? He's a better runner than that. Why are we not taking advantage of that? But it's been 4 games. And pretty much all 4 of them have been tight games. Why? And why am I to believe if you didn't do it in 2 winnable tight games against SEC teams that you're just going to suddenly start doing that? All right, we'll see how it goes. Michael in Simpsonville, Texas show said, Rob, get to the important question. How many times did you get up to pee last night? Me? Twice. Michael, I appreciate you being willing to put yourself in a position of vulnerability and share with the world, Michael. And the answer is once. I went and laid down at like 10 o'clock. I didn't fall asleep till like 11:30. I got up once about 2:30. And then I went right back to sleep for that extra, that another hour that I got. Not a bad night. Not a bad night.
I'll throw myself in there too, even though he didn't ask, and mine was 2 also, Michael. So
there you go.
So we're tied. You don't win. Sorry.
All right. Let's see. Morning. This is from Spartanburg J. He said, morning. Y'all know me. I'm as big a Clemson fan as anyone. However, I took Cuse last week and might pick Duke this week. Their 17 points will help me get back to the top of the fan pick'em. Well, Clemson does not play if you're talking about, or unless you're talking about just Duke in their game. I don't even know off the top of my head who Duke has this weekend. Duke has Cuse coming up this week. Oh, that could be a fun game. That could be a fun game. Coach has got the boys buzzing right now. Okay, fair enough. He said those 17 points will help me get back to the top of the fan pick'em. We'll see, Jay. Texter said, is this the Dastardly Dan show? I was told to text in case of a damsel in distress to reach out to this number. Haha. It's another mustache joke. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, you know what? I backed off because unfortunately he's made it sound like if we're going at least through November. So I just try not to make eye contact or not. I try not to look at the mustache.
This is
sometimes it catches me a little and I'm like, oh, and then I stop.
This is the first year I get to actively participate in Movember, which I'm probably going to be honest with you. I've never done Movember before. I think I probably will here. That being said, the wife was home for one night. She said one night was not enough time to determine if she likes it or not. What she did tell me was, and she's absolutely correct about this because I took a picture last night to send to her of me and the dogs. The wrong angle with the stash, not a good vibe. I got to be very cognizant of the picture taking. Joey texts the show, and this is a text I'm all in with, Joey. He said, Mike Shula needs to dust off the 2015 Panthers playbook and run the same damn offense with Lenoris that he did with Cam Newton. Totally agree. I think that's exactly it. In fact, you know what I'm going to do today, Joey? You've just inspired me. You know what I'm going to do today when I get to the crib,
call
Joey?
him up and tell him?
No, I don't
Okay.
I don't have Mike's number. I may text Shane with that idea, buddy of the show, and see what he says. No, what I am going to do, I'm going to go watch a couple of 2015 Carolina Panthers games. I am. I'm going to watch 2 or 3 games. I'll watch them, highlights or whatever. I'm going to go back and watch that and kind of put is there similarity here? There's a theory going around from a lot of Carolina fans that Shula is running his dad's offense just to prove that these ideas, these concepts work. I don't know if that is true, but I can see why people have that thought.
Sounds like a theory that people bring up when things aren't going well.
I mean, yes.
I
don't we always bring up theories when things are going poorly? But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it takes a friggin' genius to figure out what could not even change anything, but just what could be added to be better off. Or what could be not done to be better off. All right. I said I'd give you South Carolina's ceiling and floor here. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. The floor to me is 4-8. And I think it's very much in play right now. And here's why. I think you have to beat Kentucky. This was a game a couple of years ago that I thought was the baby rivalry of this team. They lost by a touchdown to Ole Miss. They did beat Toledo. It was a 1-score game. They did beat East Michigan. Not a good team. Beat them 48-23. It's just not a good Kentucky team. If you lose to Kentucky this weekend, and I mean this, if you lose to Kentucky, there's a world that you don't win another game. If you lose to Kentucky, there is a world you do not win another game. Because to me, as much as they are not the Coastal Carolina they were a couple of years ago with Grayson McCall at the helm, it's not a bad Coastal Carolina team. They're not good. They ain't bad. If you lose to Kentucky, honestly, you lose to Kentucky, the absolute best you can do is 3-9. Like, that would be the best, is to be 3-9. Miserable. You beat Kentucky, I think the floor becomes 4-8 at that point. The ceiling is the interesting part to me, because here's where I'm at. We have seen a couple of moments of the spark. I think one of the things I've had to remind a couple of my South Carolina fan friends over the past couple of days is that until late in the game, the Vandy game was a closer game than the 31-7 scoreline indicates. It's a closer game than that final scoreline indicated. Because of that, I would like to think that the Missouri game kind of the same situation. What was it? It was 14-7 against Vandy at the half. They blew up on you in the second half. Mizzou, you were leading at the half. You just turned around and couldn't finish the game. Both of those teams are better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. I have had this debate on a couple of other shows that I do not think Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, and Mizzou are getting the credit for the teams that they deserve to be getting, because they are pretty good football teams. And so you were in the mix. You hung in there with a couple of good teams. Teams you still should be better than. Teams I'm not going to say these were moral victories because they're good teams and you hung in there. No, you should still be better than Vandy and Mizzou at this point. But they are better than they get credit for. Here's the problem. Mizzou just got ranked at number 23. And while the AP poll is something that I am going to bang the drum on, especially when it leans so heavily on the preseason polls to impact as deep as week 4 in the regular season, there is some merit to it. They just got ranked, and you lost them. You lost to Vandy at your house, and you let them put 31 on your head in your house. I think LSU's down. I don't think they're as good as everybody makes them out to be. They're better than Mizzou and Vandy. Oklahoma, the best thing you could have going for you here is John Mateer is still out when you play Oklahoma. And I got news for you. That's a team that's winning because of the defense, man. Like, Oklahoma, what I've seen so far, could hold this South Carolina offense to 21. They just got to get to 24 and they win. Alabama, we will find out this weekend if they are real or if they are a mirage and they beat up on a bad team and then another bad team in Wisconsin. But if they do what I think they are going to do, and that is go cover against Georgia, be in a good, tight game against Georgia, I think Alabama's got to look like an L, for sure. Like, not what the team was last year. You're at Ole Miss. Again, we're going to learn a lot about Ole Miss against LSU. If they cover against LSU, an overrated but still very good team. If they hang in there with Georgia and Oklahoma, the good news for you against Ole Miss, they have Georgia and Oklahoma the week before they have South Carolina. Maybe they're beat up, exhausted by that point. But right now, that's a loss. Right now, Texas A&M on the road is a loss. Coastal's a win, and I think Clemson's a win right now. So the ceiling for me right now, the ceiling is 8-4. That's the absolute best you can do. And that requires 6 wins out of Kentucky, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Coastal Carolina, and Clemson. Let's say Kentucky and Coastal Carolina are. Do you have 4? Actually, I take that back. I don't think the ceiling is 8-4. I lied to you. I think the ceiling's 7-5. I forgot how to do math for a minute. I think the ceiling is 7-5. Kentucky and Coastal are wins. That gets you to 4-2. Now I got to get 3 wins out of Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Clemson. Is that possible? Yes. But that's the absolute best you can do. I think the reality for South Carolina is 6-6, bowl eligible at best. I think that's the reality of the ceiling. Kentucky and Coastal wins get you to 4, and then I think you can take 2 out of LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Clemson. You'll have one of those in the SEC. One of those will be like a Norris popped off. That's the Heisman finalist win. And then I think you can today reserve the right to change. I think you can beat Clemson. That's going to get you to 6.
Why is that the only one that you had to reserve the right to change?
Well, it's not. I reserve the right to change any game until we get to the week of the game. But as of right now,
sounded like appeasement.
There is nothing about
yeah.
LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, or Texas A&M that leads me to believe that between here and their game, pending catastrophic injury to an important player, that they won't be a better football team at the time they play South Carolina, unless South Carolina just sparks this weekend. But again, what have you put on tape? A win that it took you a while to get going against the Virginia Tech team that then turned around, went 1-2, and fired their head coach. A win against South Carolina State. That was a game in the third quarter until Vakari Swain broke a couple open for you, and you were able to ride that to momentum. And then losses to Vanderbilt, who hung 31 on your head in your house, and a road loss to Mizzou where you beat yourself again. That's becoming kind of a problem. So I think for Clemson, I'm going to say Clemson 8-4 is the ceiling. I think realistic 7-5. I think an absolute floor for Clemson is 5-7. I think a realistic floor is 6-6. For South Carolina, take those same numbers, downshift them one. I think 7-5 is the absolute roof for South Carolina. I think 6-6 is more realistic. I think 4-8 is the floor for South Carolina. I think 5-7 is a little bit more realistic. I think South Carolina will be fighting Clemson for bowl eligibility. I think Clemson will be bowl eligible, but by a game, and will be fighting to be above 500 at the end of this year, a year where they entered with championship expectations. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for America's favorite award show. It is time to hand out some
That is not real.
awards. We'll do college football next. We'll do the NFL to wrap up the hour. Audio Blitz and your calls in the final hour of the show here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate.
QC.
All right, guys, quick live. We're back with your TMFINR. Stay right there for me.
not going to have you this year, so that's one less. Oh, I'll wait till the following year.
Oh, I would figure out a way to pop on just for that.
I could just put your picture up there.
That's true. There's my excuse to finally buy a fat head of myself. That's absolutely a douche move, right? To buy a self fat head.
There's pictures and posters of you all over this room.
I know, but I didn't do any of those.
Well, you did.
The only thing I did was a flag.
Yeah, that poster right there.
Okay, well, that one's different. That has a message to
The
it.
pictures that
Very
are up on the
important
screen,
message.
you made those. Well, you didn't make the pictures, but no, it's a marketing thing. Now, if you are not on radio or TV or something, and you just make one of yourself, although if someone made one of their grandpa, if all the grandkids,
But that's not of
together and
yourself.
made that, yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. Not that I need that, but still. And since I only have one grandkid.
It is time to hand out the single most prestigious award in all of sports. Back seat, ESPYs, out of the way. Heisman. I was struggling to come up with another sports award there.
Slammy.
Yeah, all of you. Because it's time to hand out the
That is not real.
awards for the week. Let's run through our college awards here. We start with LSU's 56-10 win over the SELSU Lions. Yes, you should win that game 56-10. I should also see efficiency out of this game, and I did. The run game couldn't really get going for LSU, so it came down to Garrett Nussmeier fighting through an injury. 25 of 31, 273, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a 72 QBR. If Garrett Nussmeier wasn't the front runner for Heisman for the majority of the year, I don't know that he would have gotten here, but he has been, even though he's fallen off a little bit, but he's still there. Garrett Nussmeier.
That is not real.
Over to the Mizzou v. South Carolina game. I'm sorry, Gamecocks. As much as I actually really do think Lenora spun the bean pretty well in this game, there was somebody who performed even better. 22 carries, 138 yards, and I believe, if I did my mathematics correct, 217 broken tackles. Ahmad Hardy also scored a touchdown. 138 yards, took the pressure off the pass game. Ahmad Hardy
That is not real.
is not real. The Miami Hurricanes beat up on the Florida Gators 26-7, your final. Carson Beck was not great. 17 of 30, 160 through the air, was picked off, no touchdowns through the air. So how did Miami win this game this way? Easy. They ran the ball. And I am going to give a couple of dudes a TMFINR award. Mark Fletcher Jr. and Charmar Brown. Fletcher had 24 carries for 116 yards in a score. Brown had 18 for 80 yards in a score. Both averaged more than 4.4 yards per carry. Both scored. It was the run game. Fletcher and Brown
That is not real.
are not real human beings. The Oregon Ducks do everything the Ducks needed and wanted to do to the Beavers of Oregon State in the Civil War defensively. They held Malik Murphy to 5 of 18 through the air. They also held Oregon State to just 67 yards rushing. I am giving a tandem TMFINR award in this one as well because the defense was spectacular. 80 passing yards, 67 rushing yards, 1 score allowed in this game. And Dante Moore's a dog. 21 of 31, 305, and 4 touchdowns. Had about 3 drops in this game, or those number would be even higher. Dante Moore and OMG, maybe the Ducks got a defense. The defense in Dante
That is not real.
are not real. The Texas Longhorns 55-0 shutout win over Sam Houston. Listen, I was a little bit unimpressed with the attitude of one Arch Manning. You ain't a gangsta. Stop doing gangsta stuff. That being said, he did go 18 of 21 for 309 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran in 2 more touchdowns, 5 tutties accounted for, 309 through the air, and only incomplete 3 times for the first time in 2025. Arch Manning
That is not real.
is not real. Indiana had the single most, without a doubt, impressive game of the weekend. They beat a top 10 Illinois Fighting Illini team 63-10 in this game. Kobe Martin was very good out of the backfield. 12 carries, 107 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. Kalon Black, 10 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. The run game was exceptional. They ran for 312 total yards. And yet, I am still giving the TMFINR award to Fernando Mendoza, the QB, for the Hoosiers. 21 of 23, 267 yards, and 5 touchdowns. This is one of those where the stats don't tell you what the game looked like. Do you know why they were able to rush for 312 yards? It's because Fernando Mendoza, when he dropped in the pocket, was a weapon. They were forcing the Illini to play back and off the line of scrimmage, and for a team that already has a weak rushing defense, Fernando Mendoza diced them up anyway. The run game was good. Fernando was excellent. Fernando Mendoza
That is not real.
is not real. Ole Miss 45-10 winners over the Tulane Green Wave in this one, and I don't know who to give it to, but a young man who popped on the national scene by the name of Trinidad Chambliss. 17 of 27, 307 yards and a pair of touchdowns. And if that wasn't enough, he also carried it 14 times for 112 yards, averaged 8 yards a carry as a quarterback. Ole Miss ran for 241. He had 112 of them, 307 and a pair of tutties in the air as well. Trinidad Chambliss,
That is not real.
welcome to the national spot, and congrats on your first TMFINR award. 45-24, the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech knock off the Temple Owls. Listen, they came into this game, Temple did, saying, listen, they're going to win this game, but it's not going to be because of Haynes King. They held Haynes King to 13 of 18, 161. He did have 2 passing touchdowns. They also held Haynes King, something Clemson could not do, to 8 carries for just 15 yards, less than 2 yards a carry. And that is where the other Haynes, Jamal Haynes, stepped in. 12 totes, 107 yards, and kept the pass rush off of Haynes King so he could get the efficiency number up. Jamal Haynes
That is not real.
gets his first TMFINR of the year. The Doors, Vanderbilt, put it on Georgia State this weekend. 70-21 was your final, and you already know who it is obviously going to. Good joke earlier. Real good joke earlier. I appreciated that one a lot. Diego Pavia, 18 of 24, 245 passing yards and a touchdown, but he also toted it 9 times for 86 yards and a touchdown as well. You already knew it, but sometimes we hand out some hardware. Diego Pavia
That is not real.
is not real. Michigan ruins my upset pick. They knock off the Nebraska Cornhuskers on the road, 30-27. The Huskers go back to figuring out new, fun, inventive ways to break their fans' hearts and lose close games. Justice Haynes, 17 carries, 149 yards for the Wolverines. They didn't get much out of Bryce Underwood in this game. 12 of 22 for 105, no tutties, no picks. He also ran 8 times for 61 yards, but it was Justice Haynes who was able to make sure that they got past baby Mahomes, Dylan Raiola, 30 of 41, 308, 3 touchdowns. It would have been his if the Huskers pulled the upset. They did not. Justice Haynes
That is not real.
is not real. Notre Dame 56-30 over the Boilermakers of Purdue. I got a couple in this one too. CJ Carr finding the stroke, 10 of 12, 223, and 2 passing touchdowns. But the guy who jumped off the page was a guy who did not jump off the page early for Notre Dame. Said at the beginning of the year after the 2 losses, they've got to get Jeremiah Love rolling. He rolled 19 carries, 157 yards, and a pair of tutties on the ground. Jeremiah Love
That is not real.
is not real. And we wrap it up with USC, Michigan State. 45-31, the Trojans get the dub. Wayman Jordan. I want you to keep an eye on this kid. I want you to put him in the old college football Rolodex because you're going to hear his name again, probably after USC upsets Illinois this weekend and moves higher up in the top 25. 18 carries, 157 yards. Open the door for quarterback Jaden Maivia to go 2026 for 234 and 3 touchdowns. Screw it. I'm making it a tandem award because he did throw 3 touchdown passes. Wayman Jordan, 18 for 157 on the ground. Jaden Maivia, 20 of 26 for 3 tutties in the air. You two fellas
That is not real.
are not real. When we come back, we flip it to the professionals. We take it to the NFL. We hand out our NFL TMFINRs next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Cool. Be right back, dudes. Two more very quick college football TMFINR awards that I had on the list and I just did not get to. And I will knock them out very quickly. I will start with the 34-21 win of the Syracuse Orange. I think we've got to give it to Steve Angeli. 18 of 31, 244, 2 touchdowns, both of them fantastic throws. The 18 of 31 and a 76.7 QBR, not the greatest performance of a winner this weekend, but for a game where the expectations were that he was going to get crushed. I think Clemson fans, if you watch that game, it felt like Angeli did a lot more than that. The kid was on. Steve Angeli
Is not real.
unfortunately lost for the season. Hope that he recovers and is able to get back on the top of the football world.
Blame it on the rain, Clemson.
Blame it on something. And then finally, the TCU Horned Frogs 35-24 win over the SMU Mustangs. Again, maybe not the highest completion percentage, but Josh freaking Hoover in this game, out-dueling Kevin Jennings. Josh Hoover went 22 of 40, 379, and 5 touchdown passes in that game. Josh Hoover
Is not real.
gets a TMFINR as
5,
well.
that's a lot.
That's more than 3 and 4, as a matter of fact, if you're keeping track. All right, let's sprint through our NFL TMFINR awards. We go back to Thursday night to hand out the first one. And you know who it belongs to when the Buffalo Bills play and the Buffalo Bills win more often than not. It belongs to the only guy in football who has 4 first and 4 last names. Josh Allen, 22 of 28, 213 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the game. Now, James Cook tried to make it a competition, 19 totes, 108 yards, and a score. But, Josh, I mean, you put up 22 of 28, 213, and 3 tutties through the air.
Is not real.
Yeah, Josh Allen is not real. To the Browns-Packers game we go. I don't know how you don't give it to the entire Browns defense. I mean, they were spectacular. Held Jordan Love to 183, a tutty and a pick. They kept the Packers to just 81 rushing yards in this game. I don't know if the Packers read too many newspapers or listened to too many radio shows, but I do have to think at this point, y'all, I think Lonzo may have stuck the landing on this Cleveland Browns defense being one of the best in the league. Myles Garrett was a dog. Carson Schweitzinger was a dog. This team was flying, or he had 10 tackles, 7 solo, and a sack in that game. I'm giving one to the entire Browns defense.
Is not real.
Playing out of their friggin' minds this weekend. Colts 41-20 winners over the Tennessee Titans in this one. Listen, I want to give it to Danny Dimes, 18 of 25, 228, and a touchdown. But when Jonathan Taylor goes off 17 totes, 102 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground, and then you add in the fact that he also had a handful of catches in this game as well, Jonathan Taylor looks like Jonathan Taylor from 3 years ago. And if Jonathan Taylor looks like Jonathan Taylor from 3 years ago, and I got asked on a real life for real radio program yesterday.
Why does he look that way?
Well, because he's Jonathan Taylor.
And because Danny Dimes is
Let me finish where I was getting. If Jonathan Taylor looks like Jonathan Taylor he did 3 years ago, and I got asked on a real life syndicated radio show yesterday, is Daniel Jones an MVP candidate? And my answer was yes. Dude is going to go from comeback player to maybe MVP if these numbers keep up. But Jonathan Taylor
is not real.
Went TF off. The Vikings dominated the Bengals. 48-10 was your final in this one. And I got to go to Jordan Mason. 16 totes, 116 yards, and a pair of scores. Carson Wentz looked, I think, better than a lot of people expected him to. 14 of 20, 173, a pair of touchdowns. But defense was playing basically single higher cover 2 because Jordan Mason was dicing them. Jordan Mason
is not real.
Is not real.
By the way, that's all Carson Wentz is supposed to do when he comes
Yeah, I agree. He did his job, and he opened the door for Jordan Mason. 21-14, the Steelers knock off the Patriots. Let's keep it a buck. Nobody on the offense for the Steelers deserves a TMFINR award here. Aaron Rodgers, 16 of 23, 139, 2 tutties, and a pick. Not a great day. 47 yards for the leading rusher, Jaylen Warren. Not a TMFINR award. You know who gets one? The Steelers defense. 5 turnovers in the game. Any defense who comes up with the ball 5 times
is not real.
The Steelers defense get a TMFINR. The Eagles knock off the Rams 33-26 in this one. And for the first time in the 2025 season, Jalen Hurts is catching an award. Saquon Barkley was not good in this game. 18 touches, 46 yards. Jalen Hurts, 21 of 32, 226, 3 touchdown passes. He also had 40 rushing yards in this game. I said coming in, if you stop Saquon and you make Jalen Hurts throw the football, you can beat the Eagles. Turns out, maybe not, dudes. Maybe Jalen Hurts does deserve a top 5 quarterback nomination. Jalen Hurts
That is not real.
gets his first TMFI in our
Should've
award
gave
of
it-
the year.
Should have given it to their special teams.
Special teams was very good too, but that game was won at that point. 29-27, the Buccaneers knock off the New York Football Jets in this one. Nothing truly special, but if you watch this game, you know that he was bakering everywhere. I was going to say baking, but that is like in place of cooking. But then I realized that doesn't really make sense unless you were going to say cooking.
That's not what I'm disappointed about.
Oh, I'm going to get to it.
Okay.
I'm going to get to it. 19 of 29, 233, and 1 touchdown. Not a lot of touchdowns because late in the game, after they put up 17 points in the second quarter, they didn't need big plays. They just needed to tick the clock down, and Baker Mayfield was excellent at that. 19 of 29, 233, and a touchdown, and a very, very efficient day handling the football. This TMFINR award goes to Baker!
That is not real.
Told you. I was get there. I'm not letting the show gimmick die. 41-24, the Commanders knock off the Raiders in this one. I got to tell you, I jumped around a lot on who this might go to, but I think it's got to go to Marcus Mariota, man. This dude was emotional, getting another opportunity. 15 of 21, 207, and a touchdown. Kind of a similar situation. The Commanders were up at the half. They put up 14 points in the third quarter, and at that point, it was trust the defense. Don't let anything happen to us. Well, the defense did allow 14 points in the fourth quarter, but the game had pretty much been decided at that point, and it was because Marcus Mariota
That is not real.
was a dude. 30-0. The Carolina Panthers blank the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I'd like to give it to BY, but BY had the day we expect on a day the Panthers win. 16 of 24, 121, a couple of drops that prevented him from getting to probably 150. You'll take what you can get in that spot. Chuba Hubbard, pretty good day. 17 totes, 73 yards to average over 4 yards. A carry, no scores. Rico had one. BY had one. It's got to go to the defense, right? I mean, any NFL defense who shuts out any NFL offense deserves
That is not real.
a TMFINR award. They held Michael Penix Jr. to 172 and took 2 picks away from him. They held Bijan Robinson to 72 yards on 13 carries. Nobody scored on the ground. The Carolina Panther defense, absolutely no joke. 17-10, the Jacksonville Jags knock off the Houston Texans. I'm going to give you what I think might be a bit of a surprise TMFINR award. I'm giving this one to Travis Hunter. 6 tackles in this game. But do you know what does not show up on the score sheet? Locked in coverage. If you get a chance to go watch the all 22 film of this game, watch Jacksonville's defense and watch Travis Hunter. Y'all, when I tell you that I watched a DB that looks like he is a 7-year vet locking down number ones, he has given up nada so far. This dude has been, when I tell you, one of the most impressive man coverage DBs in the NFL so far. Travis Hunter looks good. It's not a TMFINR that shows up on the stat sheet. It's one that shows up in your eyeballs if you watch him. Youngsters, listen to Uncle Rob. Go watch the last 2 weeks of Travis Hunter playing on defense, and you will see what a good DB looks like. Travis Hunter
That is not real.
is locking that defense down. 23-20, the Chargers stay undefeated at 3-0 with a win over the Broncos in this one. I went back and forth. I considered giving it to the defense because they really able to slow down the Denver offense. But despite the fact that he had a pick and only 1 touchdown, Justin Herbert is a legitimate most valuable player candidate right now. Justin Herbert leads the league in passing yardage. Justin Herbert is, I believe, now 4th in the league in touchdown passes for a team that is going to run it 30-plus times per game. Justin Herbert is still that guy. 28 of 47, 300 passing yards, a touchdown, and a pick, and is now a genuine MVP candidate. Justin Herbert
Is not real.
is not real. 44-13, the Seahawks decimate my Saints. They were up 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. They put 17 more on our asses in the second quarter. They led by all of those points to 6 at halftime. Where do we go with the TMF INR award? I thought about maybe it's Sam Darnold. It is Sam Darnold. 14 of 18, 218, 2 touchdowns. I came very close to giving it to Jackson Smith and Jigba. In fact, you know what? I'm going to make it a tandem. I'm going to give a tandem award here. Sam Darnold, 14 of 18, 218, and a pair of touchdowns. One of those touchdowns, along with 96 of those yards and 5 of those receptions, went to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, by the way, is kind of turning into a nice little number 1 overall wide receiver for Sammy D.
No surprise. He went to wide receiver U.
Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Is not real.
31-14, the Chicago Bears knock off the Dallas Cowboys. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to welcome you all to the Caleb Williams Show. 19 of 28, 219 yards. 298 yards and 4 touchdown passes through the air. Remember all those times when y'all said, Rob Brown, you're overhyping the guy. He ain't done nothing yet. All this cat has done is carry this offense. They get their first win. They are 1-2, and it was, yes, because of Caleb Williams, whose team, by the way, only rushed for 87 yards in the game, diced his old head coach, Matt Eberflus, now the DC for the Dallas Cowboys. Enjoy that, Matt, because Caleb Williams
Is not real.
is a real one. 2 more very quickly. I got to give one to my dog, Mac freaking Jones, and a tandem to Ricky Pearsall. Mac Jones, 27 of 41, 284, a tutty and a pick. Pearsall, 8 grabs, 117 yards. Those fellas.
Is not real.
And finally, the Chiefs knock off the Giants 22-9 in this one. Welcome back to it, Patrick Mahomes. Not a great performance. I just had to give it to somebody, and he had the best performance. This was a Chiefs performance. Nobody jumps off the page at you. Nobody had a holy crap, what a day, but Patrick Mahomes did more than enough. 22 of 37, 224, and a touchdown through the air. It's all they needed. It's all they got. Didn't take a bunch of sacks. Patrick Mahomes
Is not real.
back on the TMF INR list. When we come back, Audio Blitz. We'll give you some of the best audio we've picked up. We'll talk some NFL, whatever you want to get to. That's all coming up after Lonzo gives you an absolutely
Is not real.
worthy sports flash.
I don't know. That could go either way. It's 10 straight wins for the Atlanta Braves after a 3-2 victory over the Nationals. Hurston Water collected his 6th win. Atlanta's bats slowed down with just 6 hits, but 2 of those were home runs from Ronald Acuna Jr. and Michael Harris II. Final game of the 3-game series is today at 12:15. Second longest tenured coach in college football is out as Oklahoma State fired head coach Mike Gundy yesterday after a 1-2 start to the season. Gundy, who is a man, was in his 21st season leading the Cowboys. Only Kirk Ferentz, coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes since 1999, has been in a locker room longer. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer will miss at least a few weeks with a broken hand that will require surgery. Mateer sustained the injury in Saturday's 24-17 win over Auburn. Earlier in the week, Mateer became the Heisman odds leader, completing over 67% of his passes for 1,215 yards. That's pretty good. I know, Kane. Why did he not put him in there? That's
Yeah, that's fair. That's
wow.
fair. That's fair.
That's a big time miss right
That's fair.
there.
I have to correct a grave injustice done in the TMF INR awards. I didn't get to the Monday night game. I left the Monday night football game off. I'm going to hand out a tandem TMF INR award in this one as well. Jared Goff was fine. 20 of 28, 202 and a touchdown. Not a terrible day for Jared Goff. David Montgomery was a dog. 12 carries, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 2 scores as well, but he had 67 yards on almost twice as many carries. So David Montgomery's there. But I think we also got to go with Aiden Hutchinson. Like Aiden Hutchinson was an absolute terror to Lamar Jackson. And I've pointed this out before. Lamar Jackson got sacked 7 times for 55 lost yards. If you can sack Lamar Jackson 7 times, you can sack any other quarterback in the league like 12. That's a ridiculous number. And part of the reason that happened was because Aiden Hutchinson was in Lamar Jackson's back pocket like all damn night, dude. He only had 2 tackles, both solo, 1 sack in the game. But another one where, to understand the value that Aiden Hutchinson added to that Detroit defense this past Monday night, you have to watch the game and you've got to know ball. And credit to Kane for chiming in and submitting. And by the way, just because I have not said it so far this season, the TMFINR awards are absolutely awards that you can submit nominees to. If you think there is a TMFINR award winner out there that we have not gotten to, submit them. And if I missed a dude, I will circle around and hand out a TMFINR award to that dude. I missed Hutch and I missed David Montgomery.
That is not real.
Who earn a 1 segment delayed my bad TMFINR award. Those guys were both fantastic. The run game opened everything up for Detroit. Hutch lived in the backfield of the Baltimore Ravens, and that is a big reason that they got it done as well. All right, let's get a couple of clips in here real quick. I don't have a ton of them, but I do have some that are very importante that I would like to get to. Raheem Morris, the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta got blown out by Carolina this weekend, 32-0. We talked about that yesterday on the show. Well, Kirk Cousins checked into the game late, and there started to be some questions because Michael Penix Jr. did not look good. Is this a panic move? Whatever. So Raheem Morris, speaking in his press conference on Monday, got asked about that.
Why the decision to put Kirk in? The game was out of hand. You move on, keep him out of harm's way, keep our guys out of harm's way, take a couple players out. We had to take some of those wide outs out, we had to get the young back in, get all those things going. The game's out of hand. They got us.
Will you give Kirk a chance to compete this week?
No.
Will you give Kirk a chance to compete this week? No. One word, 2 letters. No.
So you spend all that money on that guy, but you don't care about putting him in harm's way. That's just
right.
Yeah, that's just kind of messed up.
It's not that we don't care about putting him in harm's way. If we care less about putting him in harm's way than we do Michael Penix Jr., who we believe is the future of the franchise.
I know.
Like, yeah, of course.
So you paid a lot of money for a meat shield.
Well, you paid a lot of money because you thought that Kirk Cousins was going to perform in a way that was going to justify keeping him on the roster for that much money as a starter, as I called when they signed him for 2 years to kind of be the tutor of sorts of Michael Penix Jr. But after the injury last year, which now we know at the end of the year, Kirk Cousins did not disclose to the Falcons how severe that injury was, and he did not submit it. And I get it. I'm not saying he was wrong for it. He may have been wrong about, lying to the team, which lying by omission to me is still lying. But he didn't want to lose his starting job permanently, and he believed that he would have, which, by the way, to his credit, he believed correctly he would have. No, Kirk Cousins is the backup quarterback, and there will not be a point this season unless Michael Penix Jr. either goes down or has like a 5-pick day that he's going to get that spot back. It's just not going to happen. Let's see. I got one more in here for you. I don't think I played this one earlier this week, but I'll revisit it even if I did.
You alluded to it in the opening comments. Next week, more likely close to a top 10 matchup at LSU. It's at 2:30 again, just like this week. Is that a time you prefer when it's that same time as the week before? Or, I mean, what do you kind of feel like when it comes to that?
I'm over that. I just know what it's going to be. I told the commissioners here today, we're going to play LSU. It's going to be day during there. And we're going to go down there and it's going to be at night. So I just know what it's going to be. So it is what it is. I'm sure we'll be at night at Georgia too. So you can just mark that one in. Hey, if you just set it up that way, you won't be upset when it happens because you won't start to think maybe it'll be different this time.
Lane Kiffin and his Ole Miss running Rebels are hosting the LSU Tigers this weekend. That game is at 3:30 in the afternoon in Oxford, Mississippi. Well, Lane Kiffin is gently insinuating there is that some teams get preferential treatment even within the league. The SEC gets preferential treatment overall, and teams in the SEC get preferential treatment within the league.
It's so shocking.
I know. I just loved that he was doing his best to call it out without calling it out. And I do agree. Number one, because whether they're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Columbia, South Carolina, or Oxford, Mississippi, night games vibes are better. Night game vibes are better.
All right, when it comes down to it, Lane, make your team better, then you can get preferential treatment too.
Oh, and I would also agree with that. If Ole Miss can put together, and I think there's probably 3 games, and we're going to talk about this obviously tomorrow and Friday as we rapidly approach the football weekend. I think there's 3 games where there are some underdogs that genuinely have a chance to win the game. And after what I saw out of the young man, Trinidad Chambliss, that is running QB for Ole Miss right now, 300 some odd passing yards, 111 rushing yards, scored rushing and throwing. I think they have a genuine, legitimate chance to beat an LSU team that I've been saying for 2 weeks now I think might be overrated. I think they might be overrated. I think that there's a Brian Kelly family game coming somewhere down the line. And while Lane always kind of has some comments like this at some point for the dudes, if Lane Kiffin has his boys ready to go, and if Chambliss is able to fly around the field a little bit, I think Ole Miss can win this game. By the way, if you didn't see this thing, and this was fun, Lane Kiffin's daughter, her name is Landry. And I'm going to say this with all due respect to Lane Kiffin. She's a smoke show. She is a smoke show.
Why is that all due respect?
Well, because I'm talking about a man's daughter.
Okay.
You know? Okay. Like, it's one thing to say that lady is very pretty. It's another thing to go, yo, boy, yo, you know what I mean? Like that, and that's about a man's daughter, right? Like, I would say that about my wife, but not to her dad.
Every woman is someone's daughter.
I agree, but I wouldn't say it to the dad, right? And this may or may not end up in Lane's ears. I'd rather not take the shot. With all due respect, his daughter's a very pretty young lady, and also dropped on the Instagram this week that she is now booed up with LSU star linebacker Whit Weeks.
That means she's dating people.
Is booed? I feel like booed up is. I thought that. I figured. Yeah, I thought boo was kind of a common one.
That could very easily throw in another letter in there, be something else, and it was just. I mean, they're dangerous words for you specifically.
She is booed up with LSU linebacker Will Weeks. They announced that on social media earlier this week. To which, of course, everybody was saying, "Hey, nice job, Will. Good job, young William. Good pull." And giving Lane Kiffin crap that his smoke show of a daughter is dating a bad guy the week they're playing the bad guy. Lane Kiffin, under one of the gambling websites that brought that story to our attention, put as a response to it, and I quote, "Take the over," end quote. Like, that's fantastic. Like, I appreciate him just going, yeah, she's a grown-ass adult. I'll make the joke, and then we'll move on. That's good stuff. Let me get this one going for you if I didn't just delete it on accident. Terrell Hatton is a golfer from the UK. He's very good. He'll be in the Ryder Cup this weekend. And I want you to know there's a couple of golf tournaments per year that I always give plenty of time to on the show. I will warn you in advance that over the next 2 days, while we are preparing for another excellent weekend in both college and professional football, one of the things that is a non-sports topic that I will be talking about the next few days, I say non-sports, it's obviously a sports topic. One of the non-football topics, there we go, I'll get it right, that I will be talking about this week on the show is the Ryder Cup.
I'm clipping that.
Have at it. I never said what I was going to say. I'll say it now. One of the non-football topics that I will be talking about this week is indeed the Ryder Cup. I love the Ryder Cup. I am jacked about the Ryder Cup. It's going to be a great event. Team USA, slight favorite over Team Europe to claim the Ryder Cup. I'm all in. And one of the reasons that I love it is while there are plenty of tournaments that it is very obvious that the fellows are out there doing a job, making some money, playing a sport that they just happen to be very good at. The Ryder Cup is special because the Ryder Cup is an event that it is very obvious, whether it is for the red, white, and blue, or whether it is for the other team, Team Europe. The boys want to win. Team USA announced yesterday that every golfer would be donating their entire Ryder Cup stipend to charity because they want the focus to be on the golf tournament. I'm all in. Well, one of the guys that I'm really interested in seeing playing for Team Europe is Tyrrell Hatton. Tyrrell Hatton found out just a few weeks ago that he was going to be on the Ryder Cup. And when he did, he was out celebrating with another young man on the event. And he told a story that reminds me to remind you that while it is a snooty nose up in the air game, golf can be a party.
That was obviously a very nice phone call to receive. And I was I was over the moon, to be honest. And then also John had just won the individual. So we had a bit of a tear up. And that was a messy night in the end.
Sign of things to come, maybe from Bethpage.
I do not want to feel that bad the next day. That was aggressive. I won't go into the details of what state that I woke up to, but where did you wake up? Well, if you want to know, I'll tell you. When I did actually get back into the room, I fell across the bed sideways and face down in that position, and then I've woken myself up throwing up in that position. I've then fallen back asleep in that position, and then as I've woken up, I've got like sick all down my arms, both sides, all down my shirt. I get off the bed, like walk around to the bathroom, look in the mirror, I'm like, oh my God, I've got sick in my face, in my beard. How I set an alarm to make the flight for the few hours time, I don't know. But yeah, then waking up in a slightly more sober state was horrendous, and having to clean up that. I mean, I ended up calling Emily. I was like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I was rushing to make the room somewhat acceptable before leaving. I ended up stripping the bed, leaving some cash on and a note saying I was really sorry. I was sick on the bed in the night. Please throw in the trash. But I feel like I did the right thing upon leaving, but I was in a pretty bad state.
Rager. Tyrrell Hatton is a rager. I'm here for it. I'm here for the dude that just owns it. He's like, yep, I went a little hard in the paint. I may have imbibed a little bit too much, but you know what I did? I made it right. I left some extra cash in the room. I cleaned up my own mess. I'm a good guy, but also I love to throw down. I'm telling you, golf is as good as golf has been since Tiger's in his prime.
How did he clean up his own mess? I mean, where did he?
I believe the answer to that is the best he could.
Okay, so did he clean the sheets? Did he throw them away?
I think in that moment, what you do is you ball them up, you put them in the corner, you leave a little note that's like, do not unroll this until it's going in your big-ass industrial washing machine. All right. I think you wipe everything down the best you can. I think you leave $100 on the dresser and go, that's absolutely my bad, y'all. And then you roll on to the golf tournament.
That's just as bad as being in there and breaking the TV and all that kind of stuff that supposedly rock and roll guys do. Leaving that on the.
I don't think it's as bad as mainstream property damage. I think my man went out, won a golf tournament, was hanging out with John Rahm.
It would be for you if you were the one who went in there and had to clean that room.
I mean, again, that's what I'm saying. You leave a hundy on the dresser with a note that says, "My bad, I cleaned it up the best that I could. I know you're still going to have to do some, so here's $100. Like, sorry and appreciate you." I don't know. Here's the point that I'm making here is not to get into the correct and proper etiquette. The correct and proper etiquette of what to do when you are a disaster in a hotel room. The point that I am making here is that golf's got dudes in it right now. Like, golf has dudes in it right now. If you want classic, old school, kind of boring, quiet golfers, you got Scotty Scheffler. If you like a little personality up in it, you got Bryson DeChambeau. If you want kind of that younger new age vibe, you got a bunch of up and comers like Ben Griffin and Bryson DeChambeau. If you want somebody who's just like, yeah, golf's what I do, but I also party hard, everybody party hard. If you want a walking Andrew WK song that also plays golf, you got Terrell Hatton. This Ryder Cup's going to be fun, dude, because it's a little bit of everything. By the way, somebody threw up the idea. Terrell Hatton is not just a guy who plays at a good speed on the golf course, like a good pace out on the golf course. Terrell Hatton is also a dude that is wildly emotional, like a heart on the sleeve kind of guy, and gets very frustrated with slow play. Pair him up with the slowest player in the game, Patrick Cantlay. Put him on the same pairing as the slowest player in the game, Patrick Cantlay, because Cantlay will drive that man to madness that day. Will drive him insane. And for the Ryder Cup, I attack it the same way I attack football. If I can play some mind games and win this golf tournament, you're damn right I'm doing it. I don't care about the dollar bills. I don't care about the prestige. I want to beat Team Europe, and I want the Ryder Cup to stay stateside. If I can throw a couple of guys out there that change up the mentality of Team Europe, you better believe I'm doing it. Let's go get it, boys. We'll break the Ryder Cup down a little bit in depth tomorrow, but mostly Friday when the event starts off. Opening ceremony, if you care to watch it, is tonight, by the way. Rain in the area tomorrow, so they're just knocking that out early. All right, when we come back, let's take a trip around the National Football League. A lot of news and notes to get to as we roll into week numero 4. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. This is the Fan Upstate.
World.
All right, guys, one more live and we're back. Stay right there for me, please. tight end routes. I got asked yesterday on a legitimate, real-life, nationally syndicated radio program, is Danny Dimes a legitimate MVP candidate this year? I got asked that about Justin Herbert, too. And that would make sense. Justin Herbert is leading the league in passing yards right now. I think he's either 4th or 5th in touchdown passes right now. But I got asked, is Danny Dimes on that list at all? And I got to tell you, I think the answer might be yes. I think the answer might be yes, which, again, why am I talking about the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts? And the answer is, A, because Danny dropping Dimes. Danny Dimes right now has the 4th highest, fifth, well, technically 4th with a tie between Brock Purdy and Drake May, but has right now, in completion percentage, the 4th highest quarterback completion percentage in the National Football League right now. He has the 3rd highest passing yards in the National Football League right now. He has the 3rd highest yards per game in the National Football League right now. In fact, the only spot that Danny Dimes finds himself dropping down the list to any degree is in passing touchdowns, where he's sitting around middle of the pack right now, sitting around number 20, so slightly below average. And for the record, the most right now, if you're keeping track, is Lamar with 9, Rodgers, Goff, and Williams. That would be Caleb, the one I told you don't give up on. The kid's got some stud to him. Mayfield and Herbert have 6. Stafford, Allen, and Love have 5, along with Tagovailoa, Bo Nix, and Drake May. 4 for Darnold, Murray, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Spencer Rattler, Bryce Young all have 4. And then it's Tyrod Taylor, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Jake Browning, Danny Dimes, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels with a trio. Like, even the ones that he's down the list on, and still is right around some names of previous NFL MVPs and NFL MVP contenders this year. So why am I bringing this up? Because to me, it is yet one more lay-in example of make sure that you are putting responsibility on the franchise to take care of the quarterback. Danny Dimes shows up in Indy. And the whole premise of getting him there was let him start or let him be a mentor for Anthony Richardson. If nothing else, here's what not to do kind of story. And what did he do? He supplanted Anthony Richardson. And I'm going to go ahead and say right now, looks like Anthony Richardson's played his last snaps as an Indianapolis Colt, in my opinion. Now,
has he played his last snap in the NFL?
I'm going to say yes, because while I am also using this as an example to tell you, hold the franchise responsible for the franchise quarterback as much as you hold the quarterback responsible for the franchise and franchise quarterback, I'd also point out there are some guys that you can look at and go, this dude just doesn't have it. This was my argument with Caleb Williams. This was my argument with Bryce Young. This was my argument with Baker Mayfield. This was my argument about plenty of quarterbacks, many of whom have gone on and started performing better. Because sometimes a good quarterback gets brought into a bullcrap situation and they are asked to make chicken salad out of chicken, as the old expression goes. And then sometimes you look and you go, oh, you fixed it, right? Now, Anthony Richardson, I don't think Anthony Richardson was in a bad spot with the Indianapolis Colts. I think they have themselves a good head coach in Shane Steichen. I know that the talk about him as the future kind of backed off a little bit because they were disappointing last year. But look at what the Colts are now. Because Anthony Richardson ain't the guy. And last year you were asking him to run with a couple of obviously backup for a reason backups. But Shane Steichen, he looked at Danny Dimes and he said, maybe the G-men should look in the mirror and should quote that legendary American poet and philosopher Taylor Swift and say, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Maybe he's that guy. So they bring him in. He wins over the job. Danny Dimes is right there at the top of the list. I would like to also point you to Justin Herbert, who we talked about earlier in the show. Justin Herbert is an MVP candidate right now. He is solidly middle of the pack in completion percentage, but he's also leading the league right now in yardage through the air, 860 passing yards. He is tied for third for passing touchdowns. And in terms of rating and efficiency, he's inside the top 10 for both of them right now. He is a ratings guy sitting at number 7, by the way, right by Caleb Williams. And in terms of QBR, he's at number 8, right behind Jalen Hurts. So the point here is you didn't even have to switch the team for Caleb Williams or Justin Herbert. You just had to switch the way the franchise was operating. The Chargers said, this guy ain't the guy that's going to get Justin Herbert where we think he can go. So they made the switch. They went and got Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh showed up. By the way, speaking of adapt what you want to do to what your players do best and you'll be best. Remember when Jim Harbaugh showed up? What did Jim Harbaugh say? We're going to be a running team. We got a running backs. We're going to run the ball. They drafted my favorite player in the draft last year, Omarion Hampton, who I still think is going to be a dude. Why'd they draft Hampton? So that they could give, if needed, and now we know he does need it, Najee Harris a spell. They could have a running back by platoon or committee if they needed to. They went and got Omarion Hampton because I think Jim Harbaugh said, we're going to be a run team. We're going to commit to that until it opens up the field for Justin Herbert. Except for the Chargers went on down to Brazil in week number 1. Justin Herbert was spinning the bean, and they knocked off the Chiefs. In week number 1, they gave themselves a divisional cushion in game 1. And since then, what has happened? The Chargers are not a rush team. They're not a rushing team. They're a very balanced team right now. But they are now going, hey, this Herbert kid, he's got something. He has thrown the 7th most passes in the NFL so far. We've got something here. And so now, Jim Harbaugh, who I firmly believe was being sincere. I don't think it was a cover-up 2 years ago when he showed up and said the LA Superchargers are going to be a rushing team that has a good quarterback, not a team that has a good quarterback and tries to rush. I think he looked at this year and he went, yo, this Herbert kid's got something. Like, we have figured out the system he needs to play in to be at his best. So they molded the team to the talent, not tried to force the talent into the team. And would you look at where he is? Yes, they have only won 1 game so far. But as we mentioned just a minute ago, Caleb Williams, another guy. You didn't have to change anything but the way that the franchise was operating. Caleb Williams, in terms of completion percentage, last year it was at like 52%, 63. Granted, it's still good for 21st best in the league. But 21st best in the league puts him a 0.6 of a point away from CJ Stroud. It puts him less than a full percentage point behind Bo Nix. It puts him less than a percentage point and a half behind Aaron Rodgers. When you look at the passing yards, when you look at the touchdowns, Caleb Williams is inside the top 10. I know it has been a conversation that has been brought up a lot of times on this show. I know it is a conversation that I'm sure many of you are tired of hearing me go on and on about. But the reason that I did not give up on and have not given up on and shan't give up on Bryce Young is Caleb Williams, is Justin Herbert, is Sam Darnold, is Danny Dimes. These are dudes, specifically Herbert and Dimes, that get out of the franchise that drag them down, or the franchise finally pulls the trigger on a change to accompany them on what they need and not demand it the other way around. And now we got a bunch of MVP candidates. Now we've got a bunch of guys that are 25, 30, 35% better statistically than they were last year. That's why I did not give up on Bryce Young or Caleb Williams or Daniel Jones. Malik Neighbors said last year when the Giants sucked and everybody was coming after Danny Dimes and it was frustrating the crap out of me. Malik Neighbors went in front of some media in front of his locker room and they said, what's the problem with your team? Is it you and Danny Dimes? And he said, it's not the quarterback. They said, what do you mean? He's got bad numbers. And Malik Neighbors, a dude who has, since he showed up in the NFL, historically been pretty much a new Terrell Owens in terms of me, I love me some me. He was the first guy to go, and it's not Danny Dimes. It is not Daniel Jones. It's the franchise. Well, look at us now. Paired him with a good offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach and head coach. Paired him with a good set of receivers and a solid run game. Danny Dimes is an MVP candidate. I don't know what to tell you. Indianapolis Jones, ladies and gentlemen. All right, what do you want to get to? Shoot me a text, 844-326-3663. You're in charge of the final segment of the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, I'm going to hit the restroom. Y'all stay right there. We'll be right back. 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. We got a text on the Hub City Spartanburger text line, which is that same number, 844-326-3663. We got a text on that text number a few minutes ago that I would like to read and agree with publicly. Earlier in the show.
Why are you using that cadence? We got the text.
Because I just reread it and I'm like, I want to set this up in a way where it's got some impact and some power. So
Okay,
I'm talking
all right.
but thinking 3 sentences ahead.
I apologize.
It's all good.
I'm going to go over here.
We're in one room. Where are you going?
This is a big room.
You're
I
just
could go.
rolling
I
into a
could go
corner?
over there.
So I asked earlier in the show to do something that we ordinarily do in the preseason. And that is to set now with a disappointing year, which I think for both South Carolina and Clemson, we can go ahead and say no matter what happens the rest of the ride, it is disappointing. The only way that South Carolina season would not be disappointing is if they were to win out, which would put you in the playoff, but like not happening. Even if you played your best, I didn't think there was a chance you were running undefeated in the back half. Clemson, I mean, there is still technically a path to the ACC title game, championship, and a college football playoff berth. But you would need, for instance, Georgia Tech to lose 3 ACC games. You would have to go undefeated in the ACC. You would need them to lose 3. You would need Miami to lose a pair of them. Like it's a single digit probability that you make the ACC title game. And then you'd still have to win that against a good team. So I think it is fair to say the year is disappointing for both of those squads. The question that I asked earlier in the show was for U.S. fans to set a realistic ceiling and floor for the remainder of the year, taking into consideration where you are right now, not just records-wise, but where your football team is right now, how you are playing, who you have played, how you have played against them, who you have left to play, where you have to play them, history against them, et cetera, et cetera. Factor in everything that will impact it and give me your honest ceiling and floor. So far, Clemson fans have largely rolled with 8-4 as the ceiling. Like the best we can do is 8-4. I think that is fair. I think it's 7-5, but it makes sense. You'd be slightly more optimistic than me. On the flip side, I have said the floor for Clemson is probably 5-7. I think that is really on the table right now. It's going to depend on SMU, Duke, Florida State, Louisville, and South Carolina. They could all beat you. They could all lose to you. It depends on how you run through that stretch. But I think the floor is you go from national championship hopeful to ineligible for a bowl game. For South Carolina, most of you as fans have said you believe that the ceiling right now is also 8-4. Possible, but I can't join you on that. I think your ceiling is 7-5. I think 6-6 is honestly more realistic. And I think even 6-6 is going to be a fight. I think your realistic floor is probably 3-9. I think I think there's a 3-9 possibility out there where the only team remaining that you beat is Coastal Carolina. Not that you're not better than Kentucky. You are. But you're better than Vanderbilt on paper too. And what happened in that game? You flat out got out coached and you gave up. The Mizzou game. What happened in that game? I think honestly, I think you're probably about even on paper with Mizzou. I think you got out coached in that game. I will say I don't think you gave up in that game, but I think you got out coached in that game. And if that is the case, if that is the spot that you were in, then like I said about Clemson earlier, all I can judge on, I can judge on sentimentality. I can judge on, bounce back and attitude, and you had a meeting and some tough conversations were had, and I think that's going to lead you to X, Y, and Z, and maybe it does. But I can't predict and prognosticate on anything other than what you have on tape. And what I have seen on tape from both of these teams are two teams that, first off, are not coached exceptionally well. And that's a bigger problem for South Carolina, I think. But two teams that aren't coached particularly well, have not really developed players the way that I expected them to over the offseason, have an issue with play calling repeatedly, and two teams that, if they get punched in the face early in games, have to rely on something to give them a spark. South Carolina twice, Virginia Tech and South Carolina State, the two games you played, relied on a spark of a punt return from Vakari Swain. If you're a team that relies on your special teams, not to be good, but to give you that spark, I have real bad news. You're not a good football team. That's just kind of where you are. So, specifically about South Carolina, the text that I referenced that I wanted to bring up, because as I've said, if you ask me for the number one issue with these two teams, for South Carolina, the number one issue that I have with that team right now is I think you have an offensive coordinator that does the worst thing that I think an offensive coordinator or play calling head coach can do. And that is, we are going to run these plays the way they are run on this sheet. If it calls for a 5 and in, you run a 5 and in. If it calls for a 9 and out, you run a 9 and out. If it calls for you to be a get flat guy at the sticks, you get flat on the sticks. Versus, you know what? What's on this sheet is a good guideline. It's a good post. It's a good way to make sure everybody knows around where everybody's going to be. But I'm going to trust my athletes that I have developed. I am going to trust my athletes to look at what is happening on a football field and go, what's on that paper right now? What's on that paper right now isn't going to work. Whether it's pre-snap, whether it's after the snap, whatever. So trust it. Joey texted the show earlier, and he said, quote, Shula needs to dust off the 2015 Panthers playbook and run the same damn offense with Sellers that he did with Cam. That is the reason that I did not hate the hiring of Mike Shula as offensive coordinator for the Gamecocks. Because I looked and I said, let's look at when Mike Shula, who, if we're just keeping it a buck, does not have a long record of success. So let's look at where he did have the most success. And the answer is the first couple of years as the play caller for the Carolina Panthers when Cam Newton was there. So why would you not translate that? Why would you not? And I'm gonna make a prediction, prognostication, whatever you want to call it now. We should see more Lenore Sellers action in this game than we've seen in any other game. And if we do, I think you're closer to the ceiling. But if I see Lenore Sellers dropping back into the pocket, 3, 5, 7-step drop and setting up shop in the pocket and having to climb and look around and whatever out of the pocket, then I will come back here on Monday and go, South Carolina, go ahead and prepare yourselves for disaster. You're not making a bowl game. This might be the most disappointing season of all time.
And now the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, let's see if I can get through this because suddenly I'm having major sinus problems. All right, the first thing that's Xing is Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart, a.k.a. now officially Jackson Start. The Giants announced yesterday that Russell Wilson will be going to the bench. They will start rookie Jackson Dart this weekend, a very highly anticipated start because Jackson Dart looked pretty damn good in the preseason. Granted, not against top-tier first-string NFL defenses, but he did look very promising. And if you are the Giants, as much as I think you should have put this move off one more week until you play my garbage-ass New Orleans Saints, I get it. I understand it. The interesting thing is 2 weeks in a row, Russell Wilson was the reason that you were in a game, and 2 weeks in a row, he's the reason that you lost the game. So I get why you're making this start, but what a tough start to have to go out there and try to duel MVP candidate Justin Herbert. That's rough.
Or he can go out there and shine
Maybe he does.
It is a possibility.
Honestly, I'm pulling for the kid because I think he took a lot of crap going into the draft. I think he took a lot of crap. Oh, he's a system guy, and it's all because of Lane Kiffin and all that. And again, it's only in the preseason, but he's been pretty solid so far since he showed up.
All right, next thing that's Xing is Scooball.
Tarek Scooball is Xing because he went out last night as the starter for the Detroit Tigers. This guy was the runaway Cy Young candidate in the American League all year long. Well, last night, the Detroit Tigers went out and they lost their 9th game out of the last 10. And not just did they lose it, but they lost it to divisional rival, the Cleveland Guardians. And not just did they lose it to divisional rival, the Cleveland Guardians, but with the loss, the Cleveland Guardians have now caught the Detroit Tigers in a division that I thought a month and a half ago was over. The Guardians have now caught it, and they are 9-1 in their last 10, meaning that there is a very good chance the Tigers, who had the best record in baseball for a number of months, may lose their division in the final 4 games.
All right, the next thing that's Xing is Matt Cardona.
I do not know why he is Xing.
Well, let me tell you.
Please do.
So last night during the match between Obafemi and that dude that's from Colombia, who's the current TNA champion, TNA invaded.
Invasion angle.
Yes, which was set up at the week before at homecoming. It was set up because they didn't use any TNA people, so they showed up, and one of the people who showed up was Matt Cardona, and so did the Iconics.
Get out!
Yeah, they showed up.
Get out! Why would you lead with Matt Cardona when?
Because Matt Cardona has but he's been out of WWE longer, and
but the Iconics may be out of WWE, but they are.
I didn't recognize them. I didn't recognize them until I read it. I saw it last night. I watched it. They have blonde hair now.
Yeah, but do they still wrestle as the Iconics?
No, they
have a different name, right?
They do have a different name, but I'd give you a name that they. And during the whole thing, Ricky Saints, friend of the show, Ricky Saints, just walks out. All this chaos is going on behind him. Walks over and goes to grab the belt, and Obafemi, who had just been beat down, stands up and grabs the belt, and they stare at each other because that is coming up this weekend, which we'll talk about tomorrow on a segment that Rob has never forgotten about.
Not once in my life have I forgotten Fight Club tomorrow at 9:20 a.m.
All right, the next thing, we got 2 more really quick, is Marvel Zombies.
Do we have another one of those dropping? Because I got to tell you,
4 episodes comes out today.
Sweet, dope, love it.
Yes, so something to watch when you go home. And finally, I don't care how you take it, ABBA is trending.
Why would I listen? I'm not going to hate on
no,
ABBA.
You will, because ABBA is trending because someone hacked into Greta Thunberg's barge that she has, and they're playing nonstop ABBA songs, which is
okay. All right, hang on though. Is it just like Dancing Queen on a loop, or is she like? Because if she's going through the rotation of ABBA, there are worse artists you could get.
No,
with.
I was thinking, man, that on a boat, that's great. I guess. So I guess Greta doesn't like ABBA. That's the only thing I can figure out.
It's unfortunate. There's worse artists you could be stuck with listening on loop on a boat than ABBA. And I don't care what any of you say in judgment. I'm right. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, it's because you've got terrible taste in radio. Come back tomorrow. We'll try all over again and do better. We'll talk some football, wrestling, and more. I'm Rob. He's Lonzo. This was the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Later.
Shut it, please. My God, man.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
We did it, everybody. We did it again.
It was a great shot right at the end, watching Ricky, because he just kind of strolls out there like nothing's going on, and there's chaos going all over behind in the camera shot. It was really good. And I'm like, we interviewed that guy. That's a cool dude.
Buddy of the show. All right, guys. Got a jet. Sorry to do it again. Let's see some of the chat before I get up out of here. Braves are the Consolation World Series champs. No, they're not. They get nothing, James. I don't even give them fake consolation prizes. They get nothing. I am glad to see that they are carrying some momentum into next year, though. Like, I hope this is a faith-restoring effort for the guys who will be back next year, of which there will be a lot of them. I don't see Dabo's sermon getting players to play better. I don't think it's going to be anything Dabo says to the media or on a radio show. That's going to be a locker room. And I'll tell you this, I don't even think that's going to be Dabo challenging the team in the locker room. I think that's going to be the locker room challenging the locker room. That's going to be players looking around at each other and going like, we are not full throttle. And if we're not going to be full throttle, what the hell are we doing? I think that's fair. If he doesn't play, hashtag Jackson Fart will be trending. It will now. You may be an influencer, James. Hey, Rob, just FYI, Atlanta has the most historic wins back-to-back in the history of baseball. How's that make you feel? Goodbye, Steven. See you tomorrow. The Tigers just Mets'd themselves. Yes, they did. The Metsing is the baseball version of Clemsoning, just so you're all aware. And if the Iconics are back, I'm watching NXT today. Peyton Royce, who is not Peyton Royce anymore, but Peyton Royce, heart emoji. Peyton Royce, double heart. But I'll grow 2 more hands to do 2 heart emojis. That's it for us. You're amazing people. Tell your friends about us. We're trying to get rich, famous, and retired. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.